Live. Here we go. Okay, welcome everybody to another Let's Chat session with one of my most widely despised, but I still consider him a friend here on the internet. I don't know if anybody really even remembers Sequestor Zone. If you do, you probably don't like him. But you know what? I do, so go fuck yourselves. We have video this time because apparently I can be heard. And whoops, there we go. So we have video this time. And hopefully this can remain static throughout the entirety of this whole ordeal. I don't know. It depends on whether or not my computer decides to shit on me. But I know that was one of the complaints that was had with my last hangout, was that there was too many just avatars and not like video of people talking. So hopefully this works out. So Sequestor Zone contacted me on Facebook and said, I want to talk about the election. And since everybody's been talking about the election, I figured let's fucking do it, especially since I know Sequestor Zone and I know that he has thoughts that differ from just about everybody, and it's going to piss people off and it's going to be awesome. So, Sequestor Zone, it is good to have you here. Would you rather I call you Seshat Films?
No, I have like 30 other channels, so you can call me.
That's true.
Any of those names. It's all right. I'm stuck with that name. People will call me that name forever. It's true. There's no way to get away from it. I've tried to do it like a bunch of times. I believe that you can do it. It's just like Unseen Perfidy still got called by his former names all the time too. And then people just list them sometimes when they would reference him. And it's just, yeah, it's
like I have a bajillion names. Which one do you want to refer to me as? Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought of it as a channel name. Like when someone has that name, that's not their name, it's a channel name. But like people end up calling you that anyway. So everyone gets stuck with whatever their channel name is, and some people probably wish they had chosen a different channel name based on that. Because if you're new to YouTube, you don't know that. You don't know that you're going to be stuck with that name forever. So,
by the way, in our chat, we have our first person who recognizes you. Says that your abuse of women puts Bill Clinton to shame. So, awesome, long-time viewers.
I try.
Yeah,
I try.
What's your current girlfriend thing? Does she think you hit like a woman or a guy? Like what?
She's right here.
I know, you can ask her. We can ask her right now.
Anyway, yeah. What were you doing when the election night?
Oh, election night, I did not want to watch it at all because I was very worried. Because a lot of the things that were going on, like this is something that we were almost going to go over beforehand, but I was very worried because, yeah, the polling data was like showing Hillary is like almost like basically a lock. But at the same time, I wasn't very sure about that. It seemed very suspicious of that a president would have like a 90% chance of winning. That's insane to me. I don't.
You had to look at the individual polls. Like I was thinking of writing you and going, "Don't vote for Jill Stein," like because you had already said you were. But
well, the thing is, it wouldn't have really mattered in my area anyway. Like my county voted 70% for Trump. There was nothing I could do about that at all. And even if I got all of my friends together and we all went out and voted for Hillary Clinton, it still would have been a vast majority for Trump, and just in my county. Like Pennsylvania was insanely in favor of Trump by county. There was only like two at all that fucking voted for Hillary, and I was so shocked because like I think we discussed this actually way before the election actually happened. Like back when I think Hillary first got nominated, was both of us were very, very sure that there's no way PA was going to vote for Trump because they haven't voted for a Republican candidate in like decades.
When we talk about the electoral college, I'll bring this. I did this thing that everyone does about the electoral college, which is assume that states are kind of static and that the map's not going to change. Because like right now, the reason that the Democrats consistently win the popular vote is because the blue states are densely populated. But, when the party first started, the South was their base, and that's why they could never win because like they just had the South and nothing else. So incidentally, Barack Obama is the first Democrat in the history of the party to win election without winning any states in the Deep South.
Like
a lot of people don't know that.
To be fair, there was a lot of states that Romney lost well on in the second go around that that Trump just went in and just swept up.
Yeah.
He got like so many states that Obama won last time. It was kind of insane to look at. Like
I had an idea that Trump was going to win, like a week before, because on Twitter, and nobody responded to this tweet at all, which I'm surprised, because I said, I hate to say it, I think Trump is going to win, like a week before the election. And like probably everyone was horrified who saw that tweet. And
like,
no,
we're gonna
keep going to ignore that. It's like, he's just looking for attention.
Yeah,
we're not gonna.
Oh my God,
deal with that.
The night before, I was just so worried about it. I'm just like, I'm gonna go vote, and I have a very good feeling that this is not going to work out very well for us. And I like the entire night, I knew my friends were posting on like Skype and in Facebook. They're just like doing like live commentary on what's going on, and I'm just like, I'm gonna ignore all of that and just play video games, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and see what happened, because I'm not dealing with the stress. I'm not.
Like even at the end, I didn't expect her to lose Pennsylvania, and didn't expect her to lose Wisconsin, or Michigan. I thought like the worst that was going to happen. I thought the worst was going to happen is she was going to
biggest upset that I just couldn't see coming.
Yeah, I thought the worst that was going to happen is she was going to lose Florida and she was going to lose New Hampshire, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was gone. And
I could totally have seen her losing Florida, and I didn't really think too much about New Hampshire, but Florida, I knew. I'm just like, yeah, they might vote for Trump because they've been flip-flopping around for a long time. But Wisconsin and Michigan, like Michigan, like especially sort of like shocked me. Michigan and PA were the big ones that I was like, are you fucking kidding me? We lost those?
Well, Ryan Wiley said something that I think explains Michigan really well. In when he was mad that Hillary got the nomination, he was saying, I'm not going to vote for her. And I said, like, I was talking to him and I was like, you have to vote for Hillary because Trump will destroy this country. And he's like, why should I be afraid of Trump? We already have a governor who poisons little black kids.
That's true.
And like, why should Michigan or Wisconsin or Ohio or Pennsylvania be afraid of Trump? Like, really, because they didn't get as much a recovery as like Seattle is booming, 8 years after the recession. And that's why
we have a housing crisis.
Well, that's nothing to do with the.
No, we have a huge influx.
It has to do with
here.
Has to do with gentrification and like a couple of problems, but in terms of jobs, like even when they raise the minimum wage, it's going to be $15 in January. Like our unemployment rate is just minuscule. So there's jobs here, and there's good public transportation, and like people don't realize like the middle of the country doesn't have those things. So like their lives are a lot harder. Yeah. Like when I read what Michael Moore wrote, that got to me, because when Trump was attacking Hillary on NAFTA and TPP, a lot of people brushed that off, and I was like, that hits home for me. And I don't believe Trump for a minute.
I don't either. I mean, this is a guy who I thought it was fairly obvious that while he was the only one of the two main candidates to actually appeal to the people who are hurting the most as far as like the working class is concerned, I didn't believe for a second he actually gave any sort of craps about fixing anybody's issues of any sort of like medium to lower income whatsoever. And especially since he didn't even give any plans on that front. He just said, I'm going to bring back the jobs, and that's it. Like, he didn't say how. He didn't have any sort of, even when he was asked how, he's just like, it's going to be great, it's going to be huge, don't worry about it. Like, there was no plan.
That's why Hillary basically, like, Steve Shives did a video why he was voting for Hillary, and it like is one of the most unintentionally hilarious videos I've ever seen on YouTube. Because while Hillary's policies are different than Trump's in some way, Trump denies climate change even exists. And she talks about climate change with no specifics on exactly what she's going to do on her website. Her trade policy is almost word for word Trump's. In fact, I think she copied it. Yeah. Like because Sam Cedar said this really brilliant thing about what the Republican problem was. Because remember last election, we were talking about how Republicans could never win a presidency ever again with this current demographics. Like literally, people were saying that. People were saying that on Fox News. And like we were talking about that, and Trump figured out how to do it. But Sam Cedar said they can't talk to their base and talk to the independents they need to win the election without seeming crazy to one of them.
That is true.
Trump figured this out. With trade, he goes, we're going to put America first and we're not going to be pushed around anymore. And he goes, but we will deal fairly. And then he comes out against these free trade deals. So if you're an independent, it sounds like he's for fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that, because independents are actually, they lean left. Like and when you go for like issue for issue, they lean left, but they're like very easily misled. So they lean left.
By the way, I am a registered independent, so
yeah, but I'm talking about the ones who like don't follow politics at all. A lot of people who are registered independents, they favor one party heavily to another. Like they when I was taking a political science class, the professor talked about what's kind of interesting is people who consider like the hardcore Republicans always vote Republican. The hardcore Democrats always vote Democrat. The moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats usually vote for their party, but will occasionally switch. The independent-leaning Democrats, the independent-leaning Republicans vote exactly like the hardcore. They almost never switch. And like my theory in that class is like the independent-leaning Republicans are libertarians, and the independent-leaning Democrats are like the socialists. Yeah. And she like seemed to think that was weird, and I was like, "That's a very simple answer."
No, very simple answer. It explains it, and it's actually fairly true to life as far as like what I've been able to observe with everybody else who actually is registered independent. I usually notice that they're either like hardcore libertarians or socialists, or even Marxists, even. Which is just strange to me if Marxists even get involved in politics on a voting level. I understand that like, they kind of have to if they want to have their voices heard in any one way whatsoever. But yeah, that's generally what I see if they bothered to register at all. If they're independent, you have your socialists and Marxists or your libertarians. So, and none of them really identify as like liberal or conservative or anything like that, but they are perfectly fine with giving their like platforms, so to speak. And those platforms are very similar to libertarianism / socialism, wherever it is that you're looking. So I can totally see that as being the case, and it seems very reasonable to me.
You bring that up, that like Marxists and stuff. Most of the Marxists I know don't vote on principle. It's like
I can see that.
It's kind of funny. We'll talk about when we talk about the Electoral College, because one of my friends who's a Marxist won't vote because of the Electoral College, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But
big popular meme that the Electoral College is the worst in the elections.
But Trump, like, as far as like talking to, like, a lot of people don't realize, even like when he said he was like the quote. What's the exact quote? I have it written down. What Hillary said is, "It's a good thing Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country." And he said, "Because you would be in jail." You know how an independent hears that? Like a conservative loves it because they hate Hillary. Yeah. But you know how an independent hears that? They hear it. When I'm president, rich people who break the law are not going to get away with it. That's exactly what they hear. That's why the Comey stuff hurt her so bad, even though it was old news, because it reminded people, oh yeah, she broke the law and didn't get prosecuted. Like those bankers who crashed the economy. Now they're independent, so they don't really follow stuff, and they don't realize that the Republicans are absolute worst people to fix that problem.
It's weird. It's weird to put myself in like a position where I'm considering the mindset of a person who doesn't follow any of this at all, but is still like watching the debates and the like, or like getting the highlights. Like I don't understand the mindset of somebody like that. So it's weird to put myself in that perspective.
Yeah, like when it's easy to figure out stuff. Like Michael Moore noticed like what he said about Carrier. It's like, I'm going to put a tariff on those products if they go to Mexico, and like that's how he won, people in the Midwest, by saying stuff like that. But like some of the stuff is very subtle. Like everyone thought it was weird when I think it's in the second debate, he was asked, what do you admire about your opponent, which is a standard debate question. They always give like a job interview type answer. And he goes, she's a fighter. And like he starts talking about how she's a fighter. And I thought, that is so weird. He has just been saying the nastiest things about her like 10 minutes ago. And he is now like complimenting her, and he sounds sincere. This is the most sincere I've ever heard Trump sound on anything.
I wasn't expecting him to say anything on that question. Like, it is such a cliche question, but like you will find people. No, Jesus, sorry. You will find people who are in these debates who are asked a question like that to create some level of solidarity, and there's always going to be at least one person in the debate who is a little bit more cavalier and a little bit more of a maverick, and will say, I don't think there's anything right about them, or give a sarcastic answer or something like that. If anybody was going to do that, I was expecting it to be Trump.
But he's a genius. Trump is a genius, because when he said she's a fighter, it's a compliment to him, because what he's saying is she's a fighter just like me.
Yeah.
Trump is one of the best marketers I've ever seen. That's what people said about him. But we don't want him to be president because he's a horrible manager. He runs everything into the ground. But he's like
a great salesman. He's a great salesman. But he is everything else.
That's why I got scared, though. It's like I'm in my bubble, and like I know like what I think and people like me think. But I'm trying to think of like put myself in the headspace of someone who like actually thinks the two political parties are pretty much the same, doesn't really have strong opinions on one or the other. And I'm just like, Trump is just gaming the system. He's doing exactly what Bewildered Ape told me he was doing, which is gaming the system. And I congratulate Bewildered Ape on predicting the election. I said, I hope your second part of the prediction comes true, because his second part was he's going to just bungle through it. He's going to get really frustrated, and he probably won't even run for a second term. It'll be such a nightmare for him.
I'm hoping. Oh, please.
So,
have you seen all the people who have been like talking about other like people who should register as like a Democratic nominee for 2020 already? Like people want Michelle Obama to run. Kanye says that he might run. The Rock, I guess, said that he might do it too. Like all this craziness. Have you seen this stuff?
I think like wanting Michelle Obama to run just shows that you didn't learn anything from this election. Yeah. Just say someone who's famous. This is not what you should have.
Not what made him.
It's not why people voted for Trump. Like that's just not.
But also, they picked Hillary because she's really famous. Like that's like name recognition. They picked her because everyone knows who she is. So
okay, I thought you were also because with it, like we're trying to copy.
But both of them. Trump was really famous. He's been famous for like as long as Hillary's been known, at least.
Yeah.
And like you had two like very well known people. That's why no one liked them, because they knew them too well.
We know you're a bad
yeah,
we're not gonna vote for you.
But here's what I was doing like election night. I had the day off. I played Democracy 3 all day long, which is a very hard game. And I was like, man, someone should have made Trump play this game. Because it's frustrating. Because you can't please those voters no matter what you do. But yeah, I was playing that all day, and then I started watching Sam Cedar for the coverage. The reason I decided to watch Sam Cedar is because like we have a television here, but it's not hooked up to actual television. It's just hooked up to the internet. So anything we watch is on the internet. But I started watching Sam Cedar because Sam Cedar is much more. I used to watch PBS for all the coverage because they don't call states early. They they try not to have any kind of bias, even more than like news channels that pretend not to have a bias like CNN. And most people would find it boring because they're just like talking and they're not even getting excited. But like I was like, yeah, because there's no bullshit here. That's why I wanted to watch Sam Cedar. I was like, well, they are Democrats and they do want Hillary to win. And in fact, they were predicting,
but they don't lie and shit.
They're predicting a blowout for Hillary the day before, and I was like, you guys are crazy. So she's obviously going to lose Florida already. She was behind in New Hampshire, and then like some of the Wisconsin numbers start coming in, and she's behind there, which even when Washington first came in, it came in red too. So like that doesn't mean anything. Like she ended up winning there by like 12 points. Mm. But like when Wisconsin comes in, it's red. I'm like, that's worrying. and it was obvious she was going to lose Florida. Like her chances of winning Florida at that point was very, very small because it had like 90% of the vote was in at that point, and Trump was still ahead. And he had been ahead pretty much the whole time they were counting it. And I'm just like, these guys aren't freaking out. They weren't freaking out. They were just like, oh, well, we always knew there was a chance she was going to lose Florida. Let's stay calm. And then somebody said in the comment, like in the chat, they were like, the Young Turks are freaking out. So I was like, time to switch to the Young Turks because I need somebody who's freaking out. And like their freaking out was like epic. It was incredible.
Oh, yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine that I work with who's like, oh, we butt heads all the time because he's like super conservative but pretends he's not. But he hates the Young Turks with a fucking passion. And he was apparently watching the Young Turks, and he's just like, oh my God, the looks on their faces when they realized that Trump was winning. Priceless. I was like, oh God, I can't imagine.
Young Turks always knew there was a chance. They've been cynical about it from the beginning. So like Sam Cedar, like never even thought it was possible. So, and it was funny, like the day after and a few days after, like when he'd have guests on, they were like, well, some of the guests would be like, I always thought Trump was not going to be as much of a pushover as people were saying. And Sam Cedar was like, oh, I thought that too.
No, you didn't. Man.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Ever. And that's why he was always attacking people. He had that debate with Jimmy Dore because Jimmy Dore literally would say Trump winning is better. Right. But I'll tell you here's what was going to happen though. And I started to get this feeling. Watch it. Trump was going to come back in 2020 if he lost. The system's rigged. If you want to come back in 2020, like, because now people think, one, you're done. You got the nomination, you lost, you can't get it again.
No, but then if he lost, he could just come back in 2020 on the notion of, I told y'all it was rigged.
Yeah, like he could come back. If he could still get his supporters to think that the election was stolen from him, he could come back. That's what Andrew Jackson did, because Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams were running, and there were two other people in the race. Andrew Jackson was running on, he was going to fix the Indian problem. Like he was just saying all these crazy racist things. And like the establishment was like, no, not this guy. And he won the popular vote, but none of the candidates won the Electoral College. Yeah, it's the only time it went to the Congress, and the Congress gave it to John Quincy Adams. And then Andrew Jackson came back 4 years later and took it because he just stoked his followers up and said, they took this from me. It was supposed to be mine. I won the popular vote. That's how it happened. So like we would have got Trump anyway. 4 years of Hillary, neoliberalism is what's caused Trump. Like in the first place.
Matt and I went over this last week. We both were like neoliberals. I swear to fucking God.
Yeah. So like 4 years of Hillary, people are going to be even more pissed. And Trump's coming in. We were going to get Trump no matter what. So I actually agree with Jimmy Dore now. It's better Trump wins now. And then we get someone better in 2020 than 4 years of Hillary, than 4 years of Trump. Like that.
If it was, because honestly, if Hillary would have won, we would have gotten 4 years of the same. And then the re-election would have just been basically a repeat of what happened this election, and it would have been another fucking giant headache. But with Trump, at the very least, we have this chance of him like really fucking up and really making people more pissed off and making people go, okay, this clearly didn't fucking work. And maybe like, I don't know, waking some people the fuck up to know that you have to participate in this process, because voter turnout, I keep getting told like flip-flop stuff. Like somebody was like, voter turnout's the highest it ever been. But then like we got these stats to say that like voter turnout was actually really low, and then one of the contributing reasons was because the polls were saying that Hillary was just so far ahead that a bunch of people were just like, well, we don't even need to fucking go to the polls.
Yeah, it was like that was a bad strategy for the press. That's another thing they did. This is he just said, well, Hillary's going to win from the beginning. So where's the urgency?
Yeah.
Like, and the turnout was probably down by about 5 million.
Yeah.
from last time. But also, like, they were like, as I said, I have a friend who's a Republican, and we were talking about if we had a popular vote instead of an electoral college, and I was like, well, I wouldn't have voted for Jill Stein because the only reason I voted for Jill Stein is because of where I lived. And he like goes, well, that's true, but also it was because both candidates made you want to vomit. And it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot that part. That's also why I voted for Jill Stein.
Yeah, that would be that would be why I voted for Jill Stein.
And like the funny thing is, he's a Republican. He voted for Hillary. Like, so, because he said I could never vote for somebody who talks about immigrants the way Trump does. So he has principles.
You would think more people would be of that mindset. It's very surprising that like that's not.
Well, here's the thing: liberals are real hypocrites because people voted for Hillary in the primary, despite the fucking super predators. Like, and here's the thing: like, I've gotten in this. Serious Mind just put a comment on something that I put on the hangout with him and Steve Shives, which is stupid because he's like, she didn't call black people super predators. She called gang members. And like, you can use that exact same.
He was referring to, honestly.
You can use that exact same defense of Trump. Trump said Mexico is sending us murderers and rapists. And he said, but some of them are good people. He's not talking about all Mexicans.
That is such a cop-out. It's like when people use the word urban. We all know what they mean when they use the word urban. Like, that's not, you can't be like, they weren't talking about black people. They said urban people.
Yeah. And if you're talking about gang members and you're saying they're remorseless killers that you can't possibly reach, like, that encourages people to be terrified of black people. It's like, I don't understand like how that's not. But did you see the 13th Ava DuVernay's documentary?
I did not know.
It's on Netflix. It's anyone who has Netflix can watch it. All right, that documentary, she pounds the Clintons. It's amazing. And she dropped that shit right before an election. Like, she pounds Trump too. She shows like the similarities between Trump and like Jim Crow and like Nixon's Law and Order like type language. Because Trump says the exact same thing. He's like, I'm the Law and Order candidate. Like, he uses those exact same Nixon lines. And she does that, but then she goes right into the Clintons. And like, one of the guys in the documentary is being interviewed. He says, you know, Hillary's apologized for this, but she's not going to change it. It's like, it's still going on. And that's why I mean, like, Hillary's like a plantation owner who gave away all her slaves and apologized for it, but they're still slaves and slavery is still going on, and running for office and saying she's not going to abolish slavery. Like, that's what it's like.
I have 13th actually queued up for after we get done here. It's an hour, 40 minutes for those of you who might have the time. Check that out. I already looked at the description of it, and I'm very excited for it because these are topics that I've been thinking about for quite some time. Privatization of prisons, Jim Crow laws, and the evolution of how they still kind of affect people today, these sorts of things. This is going to be good. I can already tell.
The argument that she makes is that slavery was never really abolished. It just changed to private prisons. Jim Crow was never abolished. It just became like you arrest black people for felonies and then you restrict black people from voting because they're felons, which is exactly what happened in Florida in 2000.
And this was that was a subject that was actually gone over in the Adam Ruins Everything episode where he was going over the voting thing in general. Now he also kind of shit talked the Electoral College, but he pointed out that the fact that there are a lot of like minorities that are arrested for very small offenses like possession of like an ounce of marijuana and stuff. Now they can no longer vote for the rest of their lives. They're fucked. They can't do anything. And
it was a great way to disenfranchise black people. Here's what the Clintons did. They fucked over unions with NAFTA, which was their base, and then they fucked over black people and made them not be able to vote. And now they're like, why didn't black people and white working class people come out and vote for Hillary? I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is, if you look at the demographics, and any community that was like 50% or more black, Hillary won those communities 85% of the time.
Yeah, because like Democrats have won. Like, it was a funny thing. Do you remember when Obama was running and even after his first election, like, Republicans would constantly say that black people voted for Obama only because he was black. And the turnout was obviously very high among African Americans because they thought an African American
we're all very excited.
President would represent them better. But like, the vote is always 90%. African Americans vote for Democrats.
That's true.
Since Johnson, since the Civil Rights Act. Because like they hear what the Republicans say. So.
Republicans would talk and they'd be like, "Oh, not that."
But that's why they didn't come out, even though Obama said, "Come out and you have to elect Hillary to preserve my legacy," which is literally what he said. Like black people wouldn't come out, and the numbers they came out for him. It's like no way. It's like she's not going to do anything for us. So.
Yeah, so Obama's legacy is ruined, so that's fun. Also, it's not even just ruined because of that. Did you see that he recently pushed a fucking bill to finish up that pipeline? Like basically said, yeah.
Dear God.
He pushed the bill to finish the pipeline. He said this is gonna get done, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing at the end of your presidency? Dumbass.
Cenk Uygur said something that I think is just true. He's like, once this election was over, we were going to see whether Obama was really a progressive or not, or a conservative, and like that proves it right there. That's amazing.
What did he say? Why did he do this bill?
I'd have to look up the actual like story and all that stuff. But what I know right now is that he signed a bill just to finish the pipeline. That's what I know. I don't know if there was like some nuance there. There was like some riders that he wanted to push through, and this is like a result of a compromise or something like that. I don't know. All I know is that he signed the bill to get it finished, to get it passed. That's what he did.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean that they won't reroute it though, because
True.
people say that though, even though it's an environmental issue too. So like, even if they like continue to build this pipeline, even after it gets out of Native American sacred lands, people will still protest it. Like it'll continue being protested.
Yeah, just because of it being an environmental issue in general. Yeah, totally. I can easily see
that. But yeah, it's like the thing is like Hillary Clinton promised, like the big thing of Hillary Clinton's campaign was this jobs program, which Trump has promised us the exact same thing. Infrastructure spending, and like the key thing she promises something her opponent agrees on. Great job. But like she should have tied it to climate change like what Jill Stein does. Jill Stein offers you a Green New Deal, which what she means is we're going to spend lots of money on infrastructure to like convert the whole country to green energy. We're going to solve two problems at once. And like if some mainstream candidate was saying that, it would resonate. The reason that it doesn't resonate with Jill Stein is because they've done everything to portray her as a lunatic. So
everyone has done everything in their power to portray her as crazy. And to be honest, she has her flaws. Like I'm the first one to say, oh yeah, I voted for her, but yeah, she is kind of weird. I will completely agree.
She couldn't have said, here's the one thing that Jill Stein did that pissed me off, is she started saying that Hillary is going to start a nuclear war and stuff like that. Like that pissed me off because I don't think that argument really worked with Trump. And I think was it you I was talking about where I said like, yeah, that's what everyone said. Like when the minute Iran gets a nuclear weapon, they'll use it. And
yeah. We were talking about Sam Harris and like preemptive striking policies and all that.
Yeah, Sam Harris, if people don't know, in his podcast said that the Trump voters weren't necessarily racist. They were just sick of the Democrats being soft on terrorism and had legitimate concerns about Black Lives Matter.
he said, if I recall your words correctly, what you said was that he made the argument that yes, Trump is racist, but he's not really racist. Like
yeah, because he starts out calling him. He starts calling, why did America elect this racist person? And then he just says, oh, well, it's probably because we all agree with what he says, including me.
He's calling the people that are behind Black Lives Matter Black nationalists, and that's not true.
Did Sam Harris say that?
Yeah. That's what I heard him say.
It doesn't really matter because like Black nationalists though it's not like they're not like white nationalists, not even on paper.
Yeah, they're not.
So,
Like you get like the Black Panther Party, like is about the most extreme that shit goes as far as like United States history and Black people getting together and forming a group to empower themselves.
and it's not even that extreme.
And even them were nowhere near as extreme as like any white nationalist group in history. Like, so
yeah.
the fact that people are so hell bent on calling Black Lives Matter like a terrorist organization, like I know Sam Harris doesn't go that far, but I have seen like a bunch of people being like, if you don't think they're a terrorist organization, you drank the Kool-Aid. Like, what have they done really that causes you to be this crazy about it? What?
He's racist. Like Sam Harris is racist. Like this proves the thing that
he's a very calm racist, a calm voiced.
Trump isn't really a frothing at the mouth racist either. Like as much as people portray him as, like he just says the stuff that politicians used to say in the 90s, like about building a wall. Pat Buchanan ran on building a wall in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like do people forget that?
The wall is not a new promise at all.
It's
also
not
why it's not going to happen. But whatever.
And like what he says about Mexicans is exactly what they were saying about Black people in the 90s. Like it's what Hillary was saying about Black people in the 90s. Like, that's what drives me insane. It's like, Trump is just, like, we now live in a time where you're not allowed to say that stuff. And, like, Trump is he's just a manifestation of all this stuff that was already there. Is, like, even someone like Steve Bannon, who's obviously a white supremacist, is like, well, is he really going to do anything more racist than Karl Rove did? Like, Karl Rove may not have, like, the actual beliefs that Steve Bannon has, but he's willing to exploit racism for his own personal gain. It was like Landon Cole told me that you can't call someone a white supremacist just because they propagate a system that exploits people of color for the benefit of white people, because it depends on how they do it. On Twitter, that was his argument. Like how they do it? Like, how Hillary Clinton did it was she allowed capitalists in business to exploit Black and brown people in order for them to make more money and not have to hire workers. Screwing workers too, by the way, because those jobs would have gone to actual, people not in prison.
Yeah, it's screwing workers in a multitude of ways, because private prisons aren't just like hell for the prisoners who are put in there, but it's also hell for the people who work in these places too. Like if you don't have an option for a job, you'll get hired by a private prison, but you're gonna get paid shit, you're gonna get shit hours, you're gonna get treated like a piece of shit, and it's just gonna be hell for you. Like it's private prisons work for nobody. It does nothing for anybody except the people who own them. That's I can't stand private prisons because
hold on a second. Stop.
Can you hear the cat?
The kids are around.
It's a cat. Can you hear her?
I've been hearing the cat for quite some time.
She was outside for like 2 minutes.
I've been blocking it out.
Stop. What? Quiet.
She has opinions too.
She wants to be heard.
This cat is the neediest cat in the world.
Yeah, I can believe that. My cats only need me for about 20 minutes out of the day. The rest of the day, they hate my guts. So.
Now she needs to be around the people all the time and have them pay attention to her. So, like, see, she's quiet now that I'm holding her.
now that you're giving her attention, now that you're treating her like the baby that she is.
Yep.
But so I had when I made my like long rambly video of my return to YouTube, basically, there was a predominant theme, I suppose, in the comment section for at least as far as people who disagreed with me about things that I said. And one of the big things that they said is this idea that Trump and Hillary are just as bad as each other is bad. And I didn't say that. I didn't say that they're just as bad as each other. I said both of them terrify me. That's what I said. And people, I don't think people understand that you can have a lot of very legitimate concerns about Hillary. And so many of my issues come to things that she has done and has said in the past. And I'm just expected to just get over that in the same way that I guess Trump supporters are expected to not get over Trump saying the similar things.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
In a more bombastic way.
This is what, like, liberals and Democrats are just hypocrites. It's like, it's only bad when they do it. That's the attitude they have. And that's what Republicans obviously have that attitude too. Like, I was actually talking to my friend who's a Republican like the other day, and I go, like, what drives me crazy about the Democrats is they have this double standard, and it's only bad when they do it. And like, he goes, absolutely. And I'm knowing he's a Republican, then I like turn to him and go, and the Republicans do that shit too. And he goes, absolutely. And, because like that, like both parties are like that. It's so
at least cross about it, you know. Like, yeah, they do. Yeah, they both do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, he really doesn't like either party. Like, he's an evangelical Christian, so he tends to vote Republican because he has like really strong feelings about abortion is one of the things. And
with the Supreme Court up for grabs right now, who knows what's going to happen on that front?
Yeah, and he still voted for Hillary, knowing that. Like, isn't that amazing? Like, knowing that. So like, he has like strong opinions about that, but like, he's like, yeah, I care about the poor, and like probably more than some Democrats do. He cares about the poor because he's a Christian. And he thinks that's part of his Christian duty. So he's like, that's why he would be willing to vote for a Democrat, because he cares about the poor. But he's like just very conservative on social issues, which I just figure is just because I don't even know how he feels about same-sex marriage. I've talked to him about it before. I don't really want to press him on it. I think he probably thinks it's like a settled issue.
Probably.
But I think
that seems to be the consensus of a lot of like more, I guess, moderate but still right-leaning Christians, is that they're just like, I'm not okay with it, but at the same time, it's already done, so what am I gonna do? Like, that seems.
Yeah, I think that's probably. I've never heard him say anything about like abortion's the only thing I've heard him like seem still like attached to as like a issue, like a social issue, but who knows?
Everyone can have really complex ideas about each issue. So it's not a simple thing.
But he and I talk about politics all the time in like an abstract way, which I can't really think of anyone else, because he knows a lot about politics. As long as we stay away from actual things we disagree with we're fine. But we can both make fun of both parties and talk about how ridiculous they are and not have a fight. So
I've got the same problem with some of my friends, where I'll talk to them about politics for a little while, but then as soon as we start getting into very particular issues where both of us have very strong stances, that's when the fighting starts, and that's when
we never get into that. Stop. He and I have never gotten into it though, because we like know where those lines are, and we just
I'm very socially inept, so I can't do that. I don't have the ability to know where the lines are.
Yeah, I think he also agrees with me about, unless he just stays silent, because a lot of Republicans do, about money and politics. So I think like he agrees with me on that. The thing is, like, some Republicans are like so reasonable. Like, why are they voters? I mean, not politicians, but some of them are so reasonable. You wonder why they're even Republicans. So.
Oh yeah, I've had this conversation with some of my more like liberal friends. I have one guy that I know that I talked to for like 15 years now. We've known each other, mostly online because he lives out in California, and he's always been like super liberal. And every time he's just like, man, I fucking hate Republicans. I'm just like, could you calm down for a second? Like, I would actually have to like devil's advocate the position of like your average Republican voter for him, just so he wouldn't have this like rabid mindset of just like, oh, Republicans are so terrible. So I can see that as like a thing that might come up in discussion a lot. I've had that problem with him. I've had that problem with a lot of people that I know, like locally. And you know what's weird is that because I live in a rural area of Pennsylvania where we have, again, my county voted 70% for Trump. Jesus. Because of that, if I am ever talking to like my more liberal friends, they're not really comfortable talking about any sort of politics in public spaces. We can't do it at a bar. We can't do it when we're at like a restaurant, and they don't want to talk about it around other people. So we have to do it at like one another's houses. We don't have, because they're just not comfortable with it, and it's understandable because we live in such a like intense area. I can, this is something I mentioned last week. I can go to work and I can listen to my coworkers talk about how much they would love to just shoot Colin Kaepernick in the head. Like, as like normal conversation. Like, not joking, just like, man, I really wish I could. Like, that's just accepted.
You know that Colin Kaepernick did not vote?
Yeah, I heard that. Which is just stupid. I don't know why he didn't, but in another way, I can kind of understand it to a degree.
Well, he basically just said they're both racist. So
yeah, that's where I was going with it. To a degree, it's like, yeah, I mean, they are both racist, so and that's kind of like his main issue. So I can kind of understand that.
We could have voted for a third party. Like when you talk about like not wanting to like talk about politics in public, when I asked her who she was voting for, we were in a grocery store, and she does this. She goes, Jill Stein.
Can't let anybody know that. Yeah, because you live
like there's Hillary Clinton supporters who go off on you, even in Washington where she won by 12 points. It's like, it's safe. If it's not safe to vote for Jill Stein in Washington, it's not fucking safe anywhere. So yeah, like but what bothered me about Jimmy Dore was that he was pushing this idea that you should vote for Jill Stein no matter what. And like, I don't think that it wouldn't have done fucking any good, because they hammered Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson was hurting Trump more than Hillary. And at the very end, where her poll numbers went down after Comey made his little announcement, which made no sense, her poll numbers started going down. Well, no, her poll numbers didn't start going down. It started getting closer. Her poll numbers stayed exactly the same. Trump's went up. And guess who else's went down? Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson was at 6%. He went down to 4%. By the time the election happened, he was at 3%. He got 3% of the vote. They fucked up so much by attacking Gary Johnson, who could have given the election to Hillary. And then that stupid idiot, Samantha Bee, on her show, like, because I just saw a promo, is like, because she did like a rock climbing thing with Gary Johnson, was like, she like made a joke, oh, I should have pushed him when I had the chance. It's like, no, you fucking moron. Do you know how to read statistics? You guys attacking Gary Johnson is what allowed Trump to win. Like, why are you that stupid? Like, I made videos like about that on my channel, on my politics channel.
Well, I mean, I watched her little segment on Gary Johnson where she like interviewed him and shit, and it seemed like she was being very nice to him. At least when I watched the first segment that she did with him, and she was like, it's weird because I agree with like at least half of the things that he says. He seems like a really nice guy. So what's the deal? That sort of seemed to be the overarching theme of that segment. So I feel like that may have helped if like more people did that. At the very least, like
well, like here's the thing about her is though she like shit on Bernie Sanders supporters.
Oh yeah,
for wanting the things that she, as a Canadian, took for granted when she was growing up. Like, it's like, man, so many people, I have no respect for Rachel Maddow, Paul Krugman, like Samantha Bee, like there are so many people, Jessica Valente, who else? The list, Chris Hayes. There's just a list of people who, like, I used to respect, and I'm like, I have no respect for them anymore. Like, here, I'll ask her a question. How do you feel about the argument that not voting for Hillary Clinton was due to your white privilege?
My white privilege?
Yeah, your white privilege. That's what they said. You didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because of your white privilege. Oh. Right?
No.
Don't you have that?
No.
Are you sure? Because that's what they're all saying.
I don't.
Aren't you
that.
white?
Nope.
That counts. That's enough. That counts. They're still right. Yeah.
That counts enough. That you were half privileged.
You know what? I passed for white.
You're half privileged. You actually don't. She actually doesn't pass for white. She passed for white. She went to like urgent care and they put her down as they didn't ask her ethnicity. They put her down for white.
Yep.
And I was like, no one has ever thought you were white ever. They thought you were racist. You weren't. But they never thought you were white.
I speak English.
Like people have thought she's Hispanic. People have thought she's Asian. Jenny McDermott called her Margaret Cho last time she was in a hangout with us. She doesn't look like Margaret Cho at all, I think. But in the comments, she called her Margaret Cho. So I said, that's racist.
This notion that if you didn't vote for Hillary, it's because you're sexist or racist or you just don't care about like minorities. It doesn't wash with me. I don't buy it. I don't get it. I guess maybe it's because I'm biased because I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for Jill Stein. But like, I can't. It doesn't make any sense to me that I didn't vote for Hillary because I'm sexist. That's why I voted for another woman.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The jig is up because everyone I know who supported Hillary in the primary, if I tell them that I want Elizabeth Warren in the next election, they don't want her. So the jig is up. Like literally, one woman looked at me and goes, "Oh, she's a progressive." I was like, "Wait a minute." And none of these people called me sexist, by the way, because these are like friends and acquaintances who supported Hillary in the primary. So none of them ever personally called me sexist for supporting Bernie. But
so they want more of this.
Yep. Well, some people just like, here's the thing. After Trump got elected, because I live in lily white Seattle, no one was talking about hate crimes. Like some people were. But like for the majority of people were like my stocks. So like that's all I cared about. It's like Trump won, my stocks. Not like, oh, hate crimes are now at post 9/11 levels and stuff like that. They're like, I'm really worried about my portfolio.
That is such an upper class thing to say. I've
never heard anyone actually say that, but I'm just making fun of the kind of things they do.
That would be very bizarre for me to hear. I don't know. Regardless, PA actually had a little bit of a spike in instances of like not necessarily hate crimes, though there were some, but more along the lines of like hate demonstrations, like graffiti with like Nazi symbols and stuff, people marching, going white power with holding a Trump sign, stuff like that.
Just let's try to not interrupt each other. Sorry.
But
I'm
yeah,
just like trying to get her to not interrupt you.
At the same time, I don't think that this is going to last for too terribly long. I mean, I said last week to Matt, I said the same exact thing happened in Britain when the Brexit thing happened, right? Where they had like a brief spike and then it sort of teetered off and went down again. And I said like the difference here is that Trump actually is going to get elected, whereas Brexit didn't happen, and they're still talking about it. So there's a big difference there. But at the same time, I'm not really buying that this is going to continue because it's already like 2 weeks later and we're not getting any like new things coming in. As far as like the media is concerned, I don't know if maybe they're just not reporting on it as much or what's going on, but it does seem to be teetering off much like it did during the whole Brexit fiasco.
Well, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, well, that happened.
Damn it.
Sorry.
Okay, now I remember.
Okay.
So, I mean, do you notice the theme, though, that with the hate crimes and the hate marches is that they're all cowards and they have to find someone else to embolden them and support them while they attack other people.
That's what
they can't do it alone. That's
what makes Trump, though, like he allowed basically a bunch of racist people to find each other who may not have even been affiliated. Like the Klan and stuff, they already are affiliated. The skinheads are affiliated. But some of these people are just people who like found people in Trump and are now committing these crimes. Because like I saw we have a lot of communists in Seattle. We have a statue of Lenin, for Christ's sake. But like there's like these communist posters up, and somebody like defaced them and put Trump stuff, and then they put like swastikas and racist stuff all over it. So we have like some extreme ends of the spectrum here. Like there's a lot of hate groups here. I looked up hate groups one time for research on a video I was doing, and I was surprised how many are in Seattle.
There's a lot in Portland.
Yeah, a lot in Portland too. So
maybe the hate crime stuff has gone down because it's still illegal and they all got in trouble, or maybe not.
Yeah, what did you tell me about the video?
There's the guy I think he was at his work site and people were protesting the project that they were working on, and he goes over to harass them. And it was on AJ Plus on Facebook. But he was racist to the photographer, and then he lost his job because he was right next to his work site, so they fired him.
Yeah, there's still going to be consequences. That's the thing, is like people don't realize just because Trump's going to be president doesn't mean there's no consequences now.
If you're going to be racist, don't do it right next to
like Trump even went back on the idea that he was going to pay for the legal fees of like somebody who hit protesters because he like had to. It's just
I saw a brief documentary. It was called Hate Rising here on YouTube. It was about a little bit less than a month before the actual election. And the guy was basically going over the fact that with Trump's presidency and with his campaigning and all this stuff, it was emboldening a lot of people who before then, as he put it, would keep their racism to themselves or on the internet. Mm-hmm. That's the way to put it. And I think that's a very accurate way to put it, because a lot of these people, they didn't just become racist. Obviously, this isn't just like a thing. They're just like, oh, Trump's elected now, I guess black people suck. That's not what happened. So these are people who clearly already had these beliefs, but were not comfortable like doing anything about them outside of maybe bitching on the internet. But now that Trump is like elected and stuff, now they feel like, we're going to be heard now. Our voices are heard. We're now legitimate. So bam. But at the same time, because I don't think that Trump's actually going to succeed in doing anything that they want him to do, that it's just going to devolve back to where it was, which probably for the best, as far as like them going back to being like, let's just keep it to ourselves and go back on the internet. Like, I would much rather prefer that than them demonstrating in the streets. I would much rather prefer that, or in their schools.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is just a manifestation. Like, it's what's been buried in our culture all this time, just coming to the surface. It's not that Trump invented this or turn people this way by what he was saying. It's just, it's always been there. And then a lot of people who voted for him did so just because it's really not that different than stuff that other politicians have said within their lifetime. Like I said, the 90s, you have, someone like Pat Buchanan, who's basically saying the same shit that Trump is saying now. Maybe with a little bit more dog whistles and a little bit more eloquence, but and also, like I'll say, like having Hillary as the nominee, this is one of the things, because she has that past with like the super predators and the private prisons, it gave people license to overlook Trump's racism. Yeah. Because of no matter what you think about the Bill Clinton allegations and about the allegations against Trump, that also gave people license to go, well, if Democrats don't care about Bill Clinton and stuff he's done, then I don't have to care about what Trump's done. Mm-hmm. It gave him a chance to make it a wash. And like, because
Hillary, I'm sorry, just because Hillary was not as like blatant in her racism, and just because Bill Clinton is in the background with like the accusations that he has against him, doesn't mean that these things aren't being noticed by people who are passionate about voting for Trump and know about these things and are observing them and observing how Democrats are reacting to these things. If Democrats being hypocrites about it, then they feel justified in doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I read an article during the primary where somebody argued we have to nominate Bernie because Trump's going to be the Republican nominee. And if we don't nominate Bernie, he's going to do X to Hillary Clinton. He's going to do Y to Hillary Clinton. He's going to do this to Hillary Clinton. And it's like he's going to, because he has just violated so many norms of politics already, he's just going to keep hammering her negative, negative, negative. And he's going to make everything you say about him into something about her. And that's exactly what he did. And when I read that, I thought that is over the top, because I was like, I have no doubt that he'll try that, but it's not going to work. And then the election happened.
Little did you know.
Yeah. Like, that's the way I felt. I was like, it's not going to work. People are too smart for that. But like, really, every time
as soon as you say people are too smart for that, double think.
Whenever you say people are too smart for that, you're wrong.
Yeah. You're immediately wrong as soon as you use that.
Yeah.
Your reasoning has gone off course.
Because like I don't think they're equivalent. Like that's the thing is like when I criticize Hillary Clinton, people just go, she's not as bad as Trump, she's not as bad as Trump, she's not as bad as Trump. And I like to say to them, the election is fucking over. Like you don't need to say that now. We're not trying to elect her. After this election, I don't think she could get elected dog catcher, for Christ's sake. Like it's fucking insane. Like,
she's basically screwed the rest of her political career. She's done.
This was the end game. This was the end game to get her to the presidency. So, and like that was the thing is they decided it was her turn. Like she and Obama obviously made a deal, like having to do with the last primary in 2008, and they're like, well, it'll be your turn next time, and he would do whatever he could to help her, and that's what they did. They actually intimidated Elizabeth Warren into not running. Like there's some articles that I found from 2014 that they're almost identical, like just stated in different words, like editorials about how Elizabeth Warren should run. And I was just like, yeah, this is going on. And Bernie Sanders it's incredible how wrong Steve Shives and Serious Mind got in their hangout about Bernie Sanders, because Serious Mind keeps saying, well, he supported Bernie, but he really didn't think he'd win. He just thought he would pull Hillary to the left because, you're just left in the primary and then you have to go center in the general, which where's he getting that from? What happened in 2008 primary? Everyone was to the left of Hillary and Obama beat her. And that was despite the fact he had two other candidates to her left. They were to his left on a few things. John Edwards and Dennis Kucinich were still in there. Kucinich was still on the ballot when I voted in Ohio, even though it was considered a race between Hillary and Obama at that time. So like they were still on the ballot. So like there are a lot of people who were like, no, Kucinich is my guy. Like Edwards is my guy, not Obama still, and who are more progressive than Hillary. And he still beat her. So like that's pretty incredible because she came in like the most famous Democrat. And he was able to beat her. And the only reason Bernie couldn't this time is because they rigged it so much. And like, here's the thing is like, Steve and Serious Mind are like dismissive over the rigging thing. That dropped like almost right before the election, that there is now hard proof they rigged it. Like it's in the WikiLeaks. They had states move back their primaries. It's in the John Podesta emails. They said, let's get New York. And they mentioned like some other states to move back their primaries. Like they didn't even know Bernie was going to run. It was just like whoever runs, like we're stacking the deck against whoever runs. So like, that's just insane that like someone to the left, like Bernie, because literally Hillary like looked at Bernie Sanders and she was like, he's a socialist. And people said, oh, really? Tell me more. And like his popularity went up when she started calling him a socialist. That's why she stopped doing it.
Yep.
So it was, it was.
I think Bernie may have done a little bit better if he would have actually went on the attack on Hillary, because like he held back a lot.
He could have hobbled her, but he didn't want to be like Ralph Nader. He didn't want people to blame him. Well, they are. So,
yeah, they are anyway.
How'd that work out?
Yeah.
But yeah, like in retrospect, I understand why he did that, because when he was running, he didn't think this surprised Bernie. He didn't think he had a chance to win until he started running, and then he had this unprecedented, independent campaign, like a protest vote, basically winning 23 states, or a protest candidate basically winning 23 states. It's never happened in the whole history of either party, really. Like the closest thing to it that I can describe is like when, and I mentioned this in another video, like Teddy Roosevelt, he had been president. Taft became president after him. He was like, Taft is too conservative, so he ran the primary against him. And then he claimed that they rigged the primary against him and ran as an independent. Like that's the closest to like this primary in the entire history of the country. And like Bernie was like, he knew that his chances of winning were slim, and he didn't want to hobble the candidate, even though he could have. But here's the thing. They did that same thing with Mitt Romney. Like the Republicans decided Mitt Romney was it. Nobody wanted him. And like it just seemed like everybody just wanted somebody other than Romney. After South Carolina, Newt Gingrich had won South Carolina, or either right before, Newt Gingrich started running these ads about Bain Capital, which are like the kind of ads a Democrat would run against a Republican, not the kind of ads that a Republican runs against a Republican, about, basically vulture capitalism.
Right.
And they were really effective. And the donors said, stop. And they said, stop, because they're like, this gives up the game. This is going to, basically help the Democrats win. So he stopped. But like, that's the thing. It's like Mitt Romney was a flawed candidate. He was going to lose no matter what. He's like, he has that there. If you don't use that against him, the Democrats are going to use it against him. That was the same thing. It's like, people think that Trump copied things off of Bernie Sanders. It's like he needed to. Like, it's already there. It's like, that's what I like when I criticize Hillary Clinton. People are like, how dare you tell the truth about Hillary Clinton? It's like, I'm not saying. Serious Mind brings up in like the video with him and Steve Shives, like some people are saying like Vince Foster and things like that. Yeah, those are right-wing crazy conspiracy theories. I don't say that kind of stuff about Hillary Clinton. I don't need to. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't need to. And if she had become president, I am almost 100% sure she and Paul Ryan were going to make a deal. She was going to get her jobs program, but they were going to privatize Social Security. And like, that's what every president, Republican or Democrat, has been trying to do for decades. Privatize Social Security so that Wall Street can fucking fuck up everything. So this is a candidate who said Wall Street should regulate themselves in a speech that we got thanks to WikiLeaks. It's like everything Bernie Sanders said about her was true. It's not, he didn't make up shit about her. They made up shit about him.
A lot, yeah. I'm so pissed off with how they fucked up with Bernie, but like at the same time, I've got so many of my friends who are pissed off with Bernie, not because like they think that he ruined her candidacy, but because he backed her and they feel like that's a betrayal.
That's not a betrayal. That is him. Like he is one of the most powerful people in the Democratic Party while not being a Democrat because of that. Because she lost anyway. Like, he did everything but go and offer free blowjobs to people to vote for her. And like, maybe that would have worked a little bit better. Who knows? Yeah, maybe. Who wouldn't want a blowjob from Bernie Sanders? It's such a story.
Burn, you know?
You guys are
that's the wrong kind of burn. I know you wanted to go over the Electoral College and all the people who are coming out and saying that it's the worst thing to happen to democracy since sliced bread.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to do that? Or do you want to do like whether Trump's Hitler first?
We'll go with the Electoral College first and then end with Trump and Hitler.
Okay. All right. So like the Electoral College thing, like somebody put a meme up on Facebook that it was comparing like what a vote is worth in California and what it's worth in Wyoming, which is all wrong, by the way, because they say it's 365%, which what you should say is that's like misleading because most people don't understand how percents work. So what I would have said is it's worth like 3.65 votes, but that's wrong because what they do is they take the number of people who live in California. Yeah, the number of people who live in Wyoming.
Not registered voters and not registered voters who vote.
Yeah, everybody's there, which includes children, includes illegal immigrants in California's case. There's probably like quite a lot of people who are in the census who can't vote either because they're illegal immigrants or they are immigrants who are here but still can't vote. And also like California has all those tech jobs too. There's probably lots of immigrants who came on visas who still can't vote, but they live in California and they're counted on the census.
How about all the felons?
Well, I don't know what the laws are about felons voting in.
Some people can.
Okay, so
yeah.
California, like, it's hard to generalize them with the rest of the United States as general policies.
If you take the number of people who voted in this election, the number of people in California, number in Wyoming, vote in Wyoming counts about 2.5%, 2.5 votes in California. Like, it's equivalent to that in the Electoral College. Which isn't, considering that Wyoming is the smallest state in comparison to population, and California is the largest, that's not that big. Like, really, when you think about it, because of what the Electoral College is supposed to do. Now, I know people are going to go, oh, that's insane. It should be one vote, one person. Like, like you and I have studied philosophy, right? So there's problems with democracy as a concept, right?
Right. The whole mob rule
like
is like the big.
It's what got Socrates killed. Like the reason Plato was so against democracy was literally his mentor was killed by democracy. Like they voted to kill him. So because he was corrupting the youth. And like democracy is really how we got like a lot of the racist policies we have. Like same-sex marriage should have been legal the minute we put equal protection under law in the Constitution, but we had to wait for the public to, and even the court gave it. We had to get it from the court. We didn't get it from like the democratic part of our government. We got it from the court eventually. Like we got it from states, individual states. So I don't know why people don't understand. Like states can make, so the majority is not always right. And a lot of times when people mention the Electoral College, they always mention slavery, which they do it as like basically like an ad hominem, because while that was part of the discussion with the Electoral College, there were other things discussed, and they were just trying to avoid a civil war before the country was even made. Like why they have had that as a part of the discussion, and it didn't stop one anyway. We had to have one over slavery. There was no way, there was no budging on it. People who wanted to get rid of slavery thought that they could slowly, incrementally get rid of it. But the people who wanted it never, that's why they were willing to make that compromise, because they were like, maybe, but then every time a new state wanted to be added, we had to have a fight over whether it was a slave state or a free state. Like all these compromises had to happen until finally someone was like, no compromises, and then bloody war. Like that was what happened. And I think that's totally irrelevant to the Electoral College, like whether it's a good system. It's just like, that just shows you that people are horrible. And that's why we need like a system that like tries to basically
protect the minority against the majority. Just as a quick note, I mean, this is something I mentioned to you when we were talking on Facebook about this, is that a lot of the people who are like complaining about the Electoral College, I can almost guarantee that most of the people complaining about it would not have an issue if Trump won the popular vote, but Hillary won the Electoral College.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually hoping that would happen. Because as much as I would hate for Trump to win the popular vote. But the thing is, like, actually, no, I was hoping it would happen abstractly, but actually I realized that it would be terrible if it really happened, because Trump would say it was rigged, and then we would have a bunch of hate crimes that might even been worse.
Yeah.
But abstractly, I like the idea of a Republican-Democrat reverse. It's just like when it's Trump, there's a problem with that. But I kind of expected one this time. And I think there's a difference between winning the majority of the country and winning the majority of the voters, which a lot of people don't understand the difference. Like Trump won the majority of the country. Like he won those states that the Democrats ignored. They demographically ignored them. And in fact, we would still have neoliberalism would always triumph now, because even though that's something that people don't want, because corporations control our government. When we talk about the Electoral College, we're actually wasting time talking about something that wouldn't fix anything, instead of talking about voter suppression, which would have made a difference perhaps in this election, or talking about getting money out of politics, which would have kept us from having a Trump in the first place. The reason we have a Trump is because people are willing to vote for a monster, because they're so frustrated with how spineless and weak the Democrats are. Because a lot of these people who voted for Trump voted for Obama twice. We have exit polls that tell us this. So in the Midwest specifically. So like that's how he was able to win Pennsylvania. He won, and how he was able to win Michigan. How he was able to win Wisconsin. He won Obama voters from previous elections. So like
we're dissatisfied because I've noticed this pattern, and I'm sure I'm not the only person to notice this, but like there's this pattern of like Democrat, Republican when it comes to the presidents. It's been doing this for a little while now. And like basically what it seems to me when I look at this pattern is, okay, so basically one party gets into office, they don't fix everything that their constituency wants them to fix. They get frustrated, and then they either switch votes or allow for the other side to have a chance next time. That seems to be what is happening based off of just that observation. I know that's kind of speculative, but it makes sense to me. It doesn't seem unreasonable.
Well, Obama is like, he had the largest percentage of the popular vote and the biggest electoral victory since Lyndon Johnson, and he's the only one who's run as a liberal. Like, what does that tell you? Like, he ran as a liberal and it was successful, or ran as a progressive, because like liberal and progressive now mean different things. But like, he ran like that. And that's how you win. Like, you have to, like, that's the thing, is like, Democrats have gotten into this mindset because they started taking corporate money about the 70s, and they got into this mindset where all we have to do is push progressive social issues, like rights for minorities, access to abortions, and same-sex marriage, and that's all we got to do. And that was never a winning formula for them. Really, because like, as much as some people care about that, even some people, you can get people who are actually socially conservative to vote for you if they think it's in their economic interest. A lot of the minority vote proves that, because a lot of minority voters are more socially conservative than white voters, or they have been in the past. That's probably changing, just like everything else. But they have been in the past, but they've always voted for the Democrats because they thought, well, the life's a little better when the Democrats are in charge. And that's why, the African-American vote is very loyal to the Democrats, because they know what the Republicans are like. Like, they're not stupid. They know exactly what the Republicans are like. White voters, for some reason, have a harder time with this, I think, because they don't get screwed so consistently by one party that they don't have that loyalty. So, and like, the Democrats are not good for African Americans at all either. For the most part, they're just a little better than the Republicans. So that's just what we're stuck in. And that's why, like, you have people who won't vote for Hillary, even though Trump's like this monster, because they're both racist. Like, you have black people saying that. So, like, that's what we're in. It's because of money in politics. It's not because of the Electoral College.
Which is funny because when you look at it, so one of the big theories when it comes to like political science is that the person who gets the most exposure is the person who's most likely to win any one election, right? And the thing is, Trump didn't even have to pay for a lot of his exposure. He got
he had half the money.
Free exposure.
He had half the money Hillary did. And what's funny about them whining about that is like, oh, now you're against capitalism, because the reason they gave him that exposure is because it got ratings. It's capitalism.
Yeah.
That's why he won.
CNN would air his speeches in their entirety because they knew people would tune in. And the assumption was they'd tune in and go, oh, this guy is out of his fucking mind. But what's happening is he's becoming more familiar to the voter. And
also, like, the stuff he says, the stuff Trump says makes sense to the independent voter. That's what, like, liberals don't understand because they're in their bubble. Like, it doesn't make sense. And they're not as turned off by the racism. They may even identify it as racism. There are Trump voters. Like, I've heard people talk. I haven't really talked to anyone who's said that, because I know very few Trump voters. But there are some Trump voters who admit, yeah, that's horrible, what he said. But, like, they thought he was the lesser of two evils. That's the majority
of them in my experience. I mean, I've seen a lot of Trump voters. I mean, not to say that I don't know some racist ass Trump voters, because I do, mainly people I work with, but a lot of people on my friends list on Facebook who I know are Trump voters, they're not necessarily like racist, or they just don't care about racism. It's just not an issue for them. They just don't give a shit.
It doesn't affect them.
Probably because they're white.
Yeah, because they're white. And like, people are like that. Like, you're not going to change people being selfish assholes, because we all are. Really, all of us are sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, so
what we're selfish about just changes from person to person ever so slightly.
Yeah. Like, are any of us at any given time doing the thing that benefits the world the most? Like you and
I
really
now,
like
you could go out and
right now we're
volunteer work instead of like bullshitting on the internet.
Yeah, but we're not.
Yeah.
So, like, it's an unrealistic expectation for people to ignore their interests because they care so much about other people that they're just going to ignore their own interests consistently. Like, somebody who like doesn't have a job is going to be like, well, this guy's promising me a job, but I don't like what he says about gay people. So I'm not going to vote for him. I'm going to vote for Hillary, who I know screws everyone. So
Yeah,
like that's literally what you're saying. Like people can't put themselves in that mindset. And I understand that's not how I felt about it, because of my experience and like my knowledge and things like that. But like someone who's like that, like I can understand it. Like a lot of white women who voted for Trump had to put stuff aside, just like a lot of women who voted for Bill Clinton had to put aside his allegations because they liked what he said about abortions and things like that. It's like, it's exactly how people vote. Like people thinking that people voted this time, it wasn't the players, it was the game. The game gave them these choices and they acted exactly how they act in any election.
A few months ago, there was a guy who in the video was something along the lines of why Trump won. And this is months ago. And he was referring to the Republican nomination. And what he was and his analysis basically came down to the free market of ideas kind of concept. That this free market of ideas sort of elevated Trump almost naturally as a result of what people just wanted to see, as opposed to what is correct to see, as opposed to what's the best thing for people. More, it played on people's desires as opposed to what they needed. As far as like the ideas are concerned, I'm kind of oversimplifying it a bit, but basically the whole thing pointed out that that Trump himself. It's not a coincidence that Trump won, and at the same time he got the vast majority of exposure in the media. Sure, a lot of that exposure might have been negative exposure, but it didn't really matter to a lot of people, right?
Yeah, he also was able to drag Hillary down.
Yeah,
just by going negative. It's like it makes him look bad, but it hurts her worse.
It's the same thing. The same exact phenomenon, to my mind, is exactly what happened with it's one of the contributing factors anyway between Trump and Hillary, is that a lot of people wanted to just look at Trump. Even if you hated him, even if you did not like him whatsoever and you had no plans on voting for him, you'd still look at him. You'd still read articles on him. You'd still like watch people talk about him as much as possible because it was a ratings getter. And I mean, this is what we talked about before. Capitalism was like, oh, Trump gets people to view, that gets us money. We want to put more Trump on TV. And then that gave him a lot of free exposure that just gave him exactly what he needed to get to reach out to the widest audience he could possibly get to. I think
that's how he won. And like we were supposed to be talking about the Electoral College, but the point we were just bringing up though is that people like voting like a complete idiot. If we had a popular vote, like would this necessarily have gone the same way? Like in terms of vote for vote, because you have a popular vote. Like I would not have voted third party if we had a popular vote. So I would vote for Hillary. Mm. But there's Gary Johnson in the race. We know most of those votes would have gone to Trump. Like we know that because like you just look like Gary Johnson got 5% in Colorado, but Hillary won. But she won by less of a percentage of the vote than she lost in Pennsylvania, where Gary Johnson got like 2%. Like that tells you that it's Gary Johnson. Most of the votes from Gary Johnson. So most of those votes from Gary Johnson. So if we had a popular vote, I guarantee you Trump would have got more votes because people would have just voted for the two main candidates. Yeah. This is why I'm not in favor of popular vote. Popular vote kills third parties. Like it absolutely.
It not only kills third parties, but it is literally mob rule with a popular vote. Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people don't really like. I guess people just don't have a problem with it in this instance for some reason, but it makes no sense to me to look at something that we see as unjustified in almost every other aspect of society and say it's justified in this instance.
Like when we vote for our representatives at like the local level, at the state level, like we still have like a constitution from the federal government that protects our rights. We have, you know, federal law and we have state law, and those things need to be balanced out. They'll be balanced out by the courts. Like we have all these checks and balances. Like one example I give to people and they don't understand what this is. Let's say like California and Nevada have a dispute, which happens. States sue each other. How we do it now, Supreme Court is the one who decides on that case. The Supreme Court is totally undemocratic. Like the Supreme Court made the Citizens United decision, which is hugely unpopular. Does anybody ever send a meme around about how we should abolish the Supreme Court? Like that would make more sense, wouldn't it? Because actually the Supreme Court, you can look at the polls, is less like that decision is less popular than the entire Electoral College. Like, and no one says let's abolish the Supreme Court. Now the president is not directly picked by the people; they're picked by the states, because we are the United States of America. We all vote. We have a popular vote in our state, and then the winner of that popular vote chooses party electors who then cast their vote for president. That's how it works. The reason like that is this person is going to be in charge of a government, a federal government that oversees the states, and appoint a justice of the Supreme Court that oversees the states. If you have a popular vote, their incentive is to always favor the more populous states, because that's where the voters are. If you piss off California enough and you're the president and you're running again and it's a popular vote, that's going to hurt you. So like your incentive would be to rule in California's favor. But let's say we decided to do it democratically. Let's let the people of California and Nevada vote. And oh, look, California, landslide victory for California in that vote over this dispute between California and Nevada. That's fair because we did a popular vote, right? It's fair.
On paper, it is.
Yeah, it's totally fair because it's one person, one vote. I mean, if there's more people in California, don't they matter more? So they should, like any dispute between a state, they should just have a vote between the members of those states, and then however it turns out, that's how it is, and that's democracy.
So that's basically that. So this is basically what I was thinking whenever I was like watching these videos talking about how the Electoral College is undemocratic and bad. My immediate thought was it's undemocratic, and I was when they would say it's undemocratic, and I would go, okay, I don't necessarily see that as bad.
Yeah. What I also would bring up to people is, you know, California made it really easy to amend their constitution, and it got amended like 700 times or something like that, because like, and like they were trapped in this like fucking loop because they had to amend the constitution to make it impossible for people to amend the constitution with only 8% of the voter signatures, and like it just became like crazy. And I like gave somebody an article on that when they like posted the amendments, like this is why I don't believe in direct democracy, and they're like, yeah, I'm not even gonna read that. I'm just gonna make my argument that I was just making. And they didn't say that, but they just continued. You know how when you argue with people online, they just ignore what you just said and then move on.
Continue with whatever their thought was. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that's exactly what they do. But the Electoral College is like that. Like I was talking with my friend about the Electoral College like a few days after the election. This woman like butts into our conversation and she goes, "It is archaic and undemocratic." And I go, well, people say that, but I disagree. And she goes, do you know why we have the Electoral College? And I go, because it was a compromise for the founding fathers between the powers of larger states and smaller states. And she goes, no, because they don't trust the voters. And then I was like, okay. And she goes, do you know that when you vote and you don't vote in line with how your state votes overall, they take your vote and they throw it in the garbage, literally. And
literally. They go, yeah, and I go, this isn't what we wanted you to vote for. Crumble, like, crumble, crumble.
Yeah, and I go, don't you mean figuratively? And she's just like, that's why we shouldn't have it, and walks away. And like that's literally how every conversation about the Electoral College goes that I have with somebody who like hasn't really thought about it, which is everybody. And you know that like that when they poll about the Electoral College, there is no divide between who wants to keep it and who wants to abolish it between Democrats, Republicans, and independents, it's like 25, 25, 25, want to keep it, 75, 75, 75, want to abolish it. There's two Mark Twain quotes that remind me of how we argue about the Electoral College, because people forget about it unless there's an election that they want to bitch about. So it reminds me of that Mark Twain quote, like everybody complains about the weather, but nobody ever does anything about it. Mm-hmm. And then it also reminds me of that quote, Mark Twain quote, where he's like, if you find yourself in the majority, it's time to stop and reflect. Because like the majority of people, it's like literally they want to take our republic away and make it tyranny. That's why we have the Electoral College. It's like, and they're never going to do it. Like, it's not like, because the two ways you have to amend the Constitution is through the Congress. And you're not going to get two parties to agree to that, because one party is going to benefit from it at any given time, the Electoral College. So you're not going to get two parties ever to agree in Congress to amend the Constitution, because you need, a vast majority to like get constitutional amendment. So you could have a constitutional convention between the states. You're never going to get small states to agree to it.
To agree to the little power they have over the larger state.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to do it. So there is like an interstate compact that's being done, and like Pennsylvania is one of the states that's in it. Michigan's one of them that's in it. They're probably regretting it now. But they're all blue states. Like they're all blue states that are in it. That's why you'll never get, because they need 65% before it'll go in. But what they're agreeing to is all the states are agreeing to give their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote, which I don't know how it's going to work, because they're not bound by the Constitution at all. So like you could agree to give to the party that wins that, which would make it a little more a little simpler. But I guarantee you, if that ever, like Nate Silver has even said, that's never going to happen, and he's always right. If you did, I guarantee you, like Supreme Court's probably going to agree.
I wonder if Nate Silver is the most shocked person about this election.
He was actually the closest though, because everyone else was like, their predictions were down to like Trump has like a 15%. Like I love Huffington Post 1.6 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, there's no fucking way that's accurate. There's no way.
But the day before the election, it was like 40% with Nate Silver. Like if you had asked me a couple of days before the election, what's the chance of Hillary winning, I would say that Trump had a 1 in 3 chance of winning. So like Hillary still had the advantage, but it very well could go to Trump, is what I would say. And that's just based on my gut. And it was closer to Nate Silver's and closer than most of the pundits who were using all these statistical algorithms to try to predict the election. And I was just doing it based on, she's neck and neck in 2 states and she needs to win at least one of them, which was New Hampshire and Florida at the time. If she wins both of them, Trump can't win, was what I was thinking. But I wasn't even thinking about Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about Pennsylvania. I wasn't really thinking about, I wasn't thinking about Michigan. And just out of nowhere with those. Would you say that a fair too long didn't watch version, as far as like the Electoral College is concerned, is like it protects not as populated states and areas against more populated states and areas from mob rule, and democracy as a concept isn't really perfect? That's basically what we're getting at.
Yeah, and like when you like some people, like Jimmy Dore did another video about this too, and like Jimmy Dore, like I like Jimmy Dore, like he goes too far in every argument. So a lot of times, like he'll be very reasonable, even when he's contrary to everyone else. He'll be very reasonable. Then he'll just reach the point where it just goes over the edge. And Electoral College, he was like, he has just every video he's made since the election, he said it's Hillary's fault she lost. Then he makes a video about how the Electoral College is bullshit and we should have a popular vote. How is it simultaneously her fault she lost and she won?
Electoral College. Yeah.
You just said she won. Like she won. And like my friend who's a Marxist, like literally one of the things that I think complaints about the Electoral College actually affects people voting. They vote less because they think that there's no point to it. Because he says, he posted something on Facebook. He goes, everyone keeps asking me if I'm going to vote in this election. By the way, he constantly posts about how Hillary's better than Trump and how horrible Trump is,
But
and how Trump's
vote for Hillary anyway.
yeah, how Trump's Hitler. Everyone keeps asking me how I vote in this election, but I tell them I can't vote. I'm not a member of the Electoral College. And I put on there, I was like, your vote still counts, man. It's how you pick. And he lives in Ohio, by the way. How you pick the electors for your party is based on the popular vote in your state. And he goes 2 or 3 words, Bush v. Gore. And I was like, that's not it.
It's such a smug thing to do. Like,
he's a crazy person. He really is. Like, I went to school with him, and I think he's still working on his PhD in religious studies, but like it's been years. Sometimes it'll take someone a long time to get their PhD if they're doing it part-time. But like, he's just a freak. He's an anti-vaxxer. He's a crazy gun nut, which a lot of Marxists are. And it's just like, how can you be so political and not participate in our government at all? Like, he protests a lot. He's really protesting a lot on Facebook. After Trump, like, Trump winning is the best thing that ever happened to him, because he's like, Trump is Hitler. Here's why Trump's Hitler. And like, he posted one thing about how, it's not economic anxiety, which there's a lot of articles about that, which are dead wrong, that people voted for Trump and it's pure racism and blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, if you think that way, you're going to lose next time.
Yeah.
You can't beat him next time if you just decide that everyone who voted for him is racist and they're unchangeable. And
yeah, because all you're really doing is just guaranteeing that they won't vote your way next time as well. That's what you're doing.
And then he said to me, Trump didn't win this time. He won the Electoral College. And I go, oh, well, then we don't have to worry about him. He's not a threat at all. He's not going to be president. Like, he accused me of trolling him too, because I would just say reasonable things on all his crazy posts about how Trump is Hitler and stuff like that. And then he would say something crazy, and then I would respond to it with just logic, but kind of sarcastically. And then he was just like, he goes, he posted this thing. It was kind of like a passive aggressive post. You know how you get in this with somebody on their post, and then they'll post something later that is just passive aggressively referencing what you said to them, but they don't want to actually post on that post. They were talking with him, and he's just like, people keep trying to troll me, but I'm just putting my protest movement together because I'm too busy. I would delete him from Facebook if he wasn't so amusing.
I've got a few people that I just won't delete because they're just so crazy, and I love watching them be crazy. And I love engaging with crazy people sometimes. I just do. I don't know why. It's not going to accomplish anything, but I literally had a guy on my Facebook who we were arguing about Trump and Obama and blah blah blah, and he's just like, Obama was this terrible bombing person in comparison to Bush, and he posted a statistic about how many drone strikes Bush ordered and how many drone strikes Obama ordered, and the civilian casualties and the terrorist casualties as a result of them. And this is far from the point, but when I did the math, it showed that Obama was less likely during a drone strike to hurt civilians than Bush when he did his. The ratio was off. But regardless of that fact, it's I'm not exactly a fan of drones. But then I pointed out, I'm like, Trump said he's gonna bomb the shit out of ISIS. Those are literally his words. I'm not even paraphrasing him here. And he's like, yeah, but he's gonna be targeting training camps, so that's totally fine. And I'm like, you can't say Obama is bomb happy and then say, oh, but Trump's gonna bomb ISIS, and that's awesome. What is wrong with you?
Gotta wait till he's done.
Well,
okay.
Trump's gonna bomb children that are training, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you handle it. You just bomb them before while they're little.
You bomb the wives and the children as well. That's what he said. That's what he fucking said.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Electoral College. Part of the reason I don't like a popular vote is because if you have a popular vote, most people who I have asked this question, are you okay with someone who wins a mere plurality of the vote and not a majority? And only one person who has lost because they didn't win the Electoral College, but won the popular vote, actually had a majority. It was Rutherford B. Hayes was the president who won. He did not win the popular vote. Samuel Tisdale, like he's so obscure that we don't know who he is, but like he actually won 51% of the popular vote, and that was the closest election in U.S. history in terms of electoral college because it was decided by one electoral vote. Now, I would actually agree that one probably, like, if you wanted to amend the Constitution, that someone who wins the majority of the popular vote wins, regardless of who wins the electoral college, I would be down with that. Like, I would say that's okay. But no one who has lost the election because they didn't win the electoral college but won the popular vote has won over 50% of the popular vote. So, like, the majority of the country did not vote for this person regardless. So, like, I'll give you an example. Bill Clinton won 53% of the popular vote, and George Herbert Walker Bush won 39%. Ross Perot won 18%. And the Republicans screamed that he was an illegitimate president for this because the majority of the country didn't vote for him. And in fact, Ross Perot is considered a spoiler by Republicans, but not by Democrats. Like, a lot of Democrats will point to exit polls, which say a lot of people said that their second choice is Bill Clinton, but exit polls are always like done like in selected areas. And like, I have voted in 2 different states and voted in a lot of different areas and never been asked to participate in an exit poll. So, like, I don't know how common exit polls are. And
we actually went over this last week with Matt as well, as these like, what would your second choice be? Or if you had to choose between Trump and Hillary, those are your only options, who would you choose? And my whole thing with that is just like, okay, well, that doesn't really go over the notion of, like, if your candidate isn't available, would you even vote? Like, the people who just wouldn't even vote if they didn't have the option of their third party candidate. That
and the argument that people make, or that the Democrats make, that Ross Perot was not a spoiler and that Bill Clinton got in legitimately, is that Bush would have had to win like 70-something% of Ross Perot's voters, which is hilarious because they think that Hillary Clinton would have won 100% of Jill Stein's voters and 50% of Gary Johnson's voters. And and some of them are like, say, 100% of Gary Johnson's voters. Like, they live in like delusional fairyland when it comes to stuff like this. It's like they'll fudge statistics whenever they want, and then like just try to parse things in a way that fits their argument when it's convenient. I'm not sure if Ross Perot was a spoiler, but I think we should have had, like, if we had a popular vote, I would have demanded we have a runoff between Bush and Clinton. Like, no, we shouldn't just give it to Clinton when more than half the country didn't vote for him. But he won the Electoral College. So that's why I consider him a legitimate president, because winning the Electoral College showed that across the board in states, he won a plurality of the vote. So I'm willing to give him that because of the Electoral College, because I think when you put like winning a plurality of the vote and the Electoral College together, that equals legitimacy to me. In terms of like the system we have now. Not to say that you couldn't replace the Electoral College with a system that was better, but I haven't heard one.
Yeah, nobody who's complained about the Electoral College has come up with a better system. The only thing I've heard so far is just replace it with the popular vote, which is, as we've already gone over for a multitude of reasons, is not good.
Yeah, and ranked choice voting was brought up in my video about the Electoral College as an option. And ranked choice voting, I'm not really against. It's still an experiment. What it requires someone to do is, though, usually it's the top 3. You pick your top 3 people and you rank them. And what they do is they just count everyone's first choice. Well, if somebody doesn't win a majority, they only win a plurality, then you go to round 2. And then you just throw those in and you keep doing it until someone wins a majority. Now, they just passed this in Maine. Maine is going to do it with all the state races, like local state races, basically. Not the presidency, though, because they know it's experimental. They're not going to fuck up their presidential election by doing that. Right. So they might eventually, but it's experimental. But like their governor got in with like 36% of the vote because they have independent voters there. Like the person who brought up instant runoff voting, though, said that they were okay with someone winning just 43% of the popular vote as the presidency and then becoming president. But the reason instant runoff voting exists is because when somebody wins the election with like less than 50%, it pisses people off. If you have a popular vote, and like it does,
like you can't avoid that. It's going to piss people off. And honestly, people are going to be pissed off regardless if their candidate does not win. Like that's fundamental. You're not going to be able to avoid that.
In Maine, they have bumper stickers against this governor that say the 64%. The 64% didn't vote for him. Now they didn't all vote for the same candidate because there was third-party candidates involved, but only 36% voted for him. And he's a crazy racist Republican in Maine, but because he was the only crazy racist Republican, crazy racists vote for him. So like that's how it worked. And in fact, like a popular vote would make, like if enough people were in the race, would make a Trump more likely, not less likely. Because if you have like 5 people in the race, the crazy racist vote could win out. Like that's why, like in the UK, they have more parties. They have Labour Party. They have Green Party. They have the Democratic Liberals. They have the Conservatives, which are sometimes called the Tories, but they haven't really officially been called that for a long time. But it's just a nickname now. But then they have UKIP. And that gets into Congress. So like more parties, it's like I'm not necessarily for more parties. It's just the parties we have now are fucked. And I think pressuring them with third parties is a good way to try to reform those parties.
Fix their shit.
But if we have third parties, it's going to end up like an extremist party has more of a chance of getting in. So the person who mentioned instant runoff voting seemed to want it because it would include third parties, but it's really a device to make sure that the person who gets elected has a majority support, not plurality. Mm-hmm. Because I'm against electing people with just pluralities. I want majority support. I want the majority of people to at least be okay with this person being president, which is what we have now is like a majority of the people in the country are not okay with Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump being president.
Right.
Like just they prefer one or the other. That's what the choice we had here now was. And that has nothing to do with the Electoral College. It's about all the other shit in our elections that are fucked up. But like we're not fine with that. And that's why I'm against the popular vote. Now, if instant runoff ends up working, perhaps we could do an instant runoff with the whole country, and then it would make our presidential elections better. But it would be way more complicated. Like we would not know who's president for days.
Yeah,
at the very least.
I mean, to be fair though, we already have like a 2-month buffer at the very least between like the election and when they actually get sworn in. So they probably have the time to figure it out.
Yeah, but I mean, like there would be a lot of disputes, and this is one of the reasons that I don't want a popular vote. Like, if in this case, if we had a popular vote, there would be a recount, and like we didn't actually know like the actual night of the margin by Hillary winning the popular vote was razor thin. It's now like grown to about 1 million, which is bigger than Bush and Gore. At least last time I checked. So, yeah. But they like keep adding more. Like every time I think that she's pulled like ahead of Trump by a significant amount, then Trump gets more votes. So, but we would have had a recount. And they had, I don't know if you saw the articles. They were ready to sue each other before this election started, like already, in case it was really close. But the Electoral College saved us from that. Like it saved us from that. If it was a really close Electoral College and it came down to one state, they were going to sue the fuck out of each other. Like they were ready for it. Even with that, with a popular vote, oh my God, it would go on for months. Like Trump would never accept it if Hillary won. He would come back in 4 years and we'd have Trump president. Anyway, like that's what would have happened. Like I have no doubt that that's what would have happened. Not to mention, like I said before, we got more votes if it was a popular vote because Darrell Castle voters would have voted for Trump because they're a Constitution Party. They're probably closer to Trump than anybody. As far as third-party voters go, like a lot of libertarians would have. And those guys who voted for Evan McMullin in Utah, no, they wouldn't have. Because like they couldn't bear to vote for Hillary. That's what's funny about Mormons hated Trump, but they could not bear to vote for Hillary. So they voted for some guy they knew who couldn't even win the election at all. At least like Gary Johnson was in all 50 states. McMullin could not win like any state but Utah. So there's a lot more votes for Trump to pick up if you had a popular vote than there is for Hillary. So he might have still won, even with a popular vote. It wouldn't have changed shit, I don't think. And even if it did, it would have done so after a really, really, really badly contested recount.
After a lot of litigation, after a lot of chaos, after like the after effects would have been much further felt, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and we might have had like hate crimes of rioting and like stuff like that for weeks and months, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that's what the Electoral College is supposed to save us from. That's one of the reasons we have it. It's supposed to save us from like a contested election that just tears the country apart. And it did this time. It totally did. So, and it didn't save us from having a madman as our president, but like they tried to keep a madman from becoming president with Andrew Jackson. Like some people object to me calling Andrew Jackson a madman. They don't think he was as bad as Trump.
These people need to look at Andrew Jackson and his history, because he was a crazy person.
Yeah, I don't think they think that Andrew Jackson was great. I just think they think Trump is even worse. So they're like, how dare you insult Andrew Jackson by comparing him to Trump?
Sure, Andrew Jackson hated the Indians and he wanted to kill them all. And sure, he basically would duel his political dissidents and try to have them killed. But still not as bad as Trump.
Yep, that's pretty much. Also, the thing I'll bring up, since I told you this right before, to people if they know who won the popular vote in the 2008 Democratic primary. And I'll give you a hint. It wasn't the guy who was president for 8 years. Now, Barack Obama lost the popular vote, but won more delegates than Hillary Clinton in the 2008 primary. The reason he won despite losing the popular vote is Hillary did better in primaries and Obama did better in caucuses, where they make you come out and, you know, act like you're kindergartners playing a game instead of actually voting for president. And like caucuses are like, we have them in Washington. They're weird. But like most people aren't willing to like spend their day going to, like, a lot of people like don't vote because they have to work and like they can't even get off work. So like caucuses, like even though Bernie does better and like Obama did better and they were better for my candidates, I kind of don't like them because they mean that only people who have spare time can come out and cast votes for the most part. So they're kind of in a way. Which brings me to like the last point, like the reason you're seeing the Democrats winning the popular vote and the Republicans not is because of the coasts. And that wasn't always the case. Like at one point they were the Southern Party and they couldn't win because of that. But they have the coast now. It's the most densely populated areas. So if they win big there, they're going to win the popular vote, even if the rest of the country votes against them. So, and even if you lose a popular, like Wyoming as a state, you know, had to like deserve some respect as an individual state. That's why, like, when states sue each other, like you have a body that arbitrates that, which is the Supreme Court. So like, they deserve like some sovereignty as a state. Like if you want to get rid of the Electoral College, just get rid of states. Just be one big state, and try it that way. See how that works.
We're talking about Andrew Jackson in the chat. Somebody was like, it wasn't Andrew Jackson that dueled Hamilton. I'm like, no. I'm talking about the 200 other people he fucking dueled. And they're like, it was before he was POTUS, right? I'm like, yeah, I think he was in Congress at the time. And then Whirling Wolves is brought up. He's like, actually, one of the only reasons I like Andrew Jackson is because he went around dueling people, because it's just fucking hilarious to me. And then
Andrew Jackson was a lot like Trump. I read an article where it was just like, because it's just like everything was wrong with him and people were voting for him. And they were like, what the fuck? This guy who goes around like dueling people. He like had his wife used to be like his mistress and she was married to another man, and like everything that would have pissed people off at that time, and like people were voting for him and they were like, oh my god, and he won the popular vote and they just took it from him. They took it.
After he actually became president, he actually had like a huge fucking party on the White House lawn and like all over the White House, and there was a lot of fucking sex going on in that party too. Um, and the rad player is like, can he even get it up at that age? It's like, I wouldn't put it past him because, you know, it was at around that time that he also beat the shit out of an assassin with his cane. So, you know, maybe.
Yeah, that's what, like, Trump is hardly the craziest president we've ever had.
Yeah. It's just that we didn't have like 24/7 news media at the time of our founding fathers, who were also fucking crazy.
Well, like I said, one of the things I said to someone is Trump he's not our first racist president. He's not even our first rapist president. And a lot of people thought I was talking about Bill Clinton. I'm like, no, it's Thomas Jefferson I'm talking about. He had slaves. So that was our first rapist president, as far as I know, unless George Washington did some stuff I don't know about. So I doubt John Adams did. John Adams had like legendary moral integrity. So
no, probably no. Washington,
I would be
not entirely certain. He may have, but I don't know. He kept to himself a lot. That's kind of like one of the issues with examining him.
Well, John Adams, like, also he was against slavery on principle and didn't own slaves. So I don't know. If I would be disappointed, he's kind of a hero of mine if he raped somebody. But yeah, it's a horrible topic to get off on.
But well, we can bring it around here into the last thing you want to talk about. Trump and Hitler. We touched on that a little bit earlier, but I believe what you told me.
Can we state the obvious differences? Doesn't speak German. No mustache. Hitler had a micro penis apparently, and Trump assured us that there was nothing wrong down there.
Yeah, there you go.
So, other than that, exactly the same.
Hitler, vegetarian, Trump, meat eater. So,
oh, there's another one. Okay. Also, like, I think, like, just even if, like, Trump has some similarities, some superficial similarities to Hitler, but, like, also just the conditions of Germany at the time where Hitler rose were, like, way more extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were because of World War I, they were very vulnerable to nationalistic propaganda, anti-Semitism in Europe, like 19th century, like, it's horrible. And then going into the 20th century, like, it's just kind of building and building. Like, right now we're getting into, like, the anti-immigrant thing is building. I don't think it's really anywhere near what anti-Semitism was in Europe when Hitler came to power.
I actually read an article that was going over an old, basically a political discussion that was happening in Germany at the time of Hitler's rise and the Nazis' rise as a political party. And basically what the discussion was there was a bunch of Germans who were like, okay, so there's these Nazis, they seem kind of crazy, they seem a little out there, they seem like very, very large outliers, and they're getting a lot of power. So maybe if we bring them into the mainstream, then a lot of them will start to moderate it up.
There's a quote going around Facebook, and it's supposedly a Hitler quote, and it sounded like a fake one to me, so I looked it up, but it's real. And he says, like, they could have smashed our movement if they had focused on the nucleus. This isn't the exact quote because I can't remember it. Nucleus, and does something like that. And I looked it up in the context of it. Like, a lot of people were like, they were like, yeah, that's why we're protesting. And I looked it up, and what he means is it treated us like any other political party. They didn't isolate the anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. Like, we wanted to kill the Jews, basically. Yeah. And they didn't isolate that from us. It's a real quote from Hitler. I can't properly read it because I don't read German.
Right.
But an English translation of it leads me to believe that's what he means. And it's kind of ironic because the people who are freaking out, they're treating him just like Bush, because like Michael Moore came out to the protest and he was like, he's an illegitimate president because he didn't win the popular vote. I was like, if you treat him like he's Bush, you normalize him on a level that allows him to get away with crazier shit. Like, you have to isolate like stuff like Steve Bannon, like appointing Steve Bannon. Like, you have to choose your battles and be like, no, that is like unacceptable. And like, just make it clear what you're objecting to. Not that you're objecting to him because he got elected and because he's a Republican. Wrong. Even though, like, I'm more scared of him being a Republican, a traditional Republican, and he's going to repeal Dodd-Frank, and he's going to, remove the estate tax, and he's going to remove all these taxes on rich people, and then spend a bunch of money on stupid shit, and then totally crater our economy, which a lot of people aren't even recovered from the last one. So because they did nothing, because fucking Obama did nothing. He didn't do nothing, but he slapped a Band-Aid on it. So that's why you need someone like, so people don't wake up. You need someone like Elizabeth Warren. You need someone like Bernie Sanders. Like that's what you need to be president. And you need them to scream a lot.
You need them to scream, you need them to be angry. You need them to be pissed off. You need them to be passionate. You need
like if I was running Elizabeth Warren's campaign, it would be the easiest campaign ever, because I would just be like, here's this YouTube video of you screaming at this banker. Like, so let's cut it right here. Cut it here. All right. Warren 2020. We'll just slap that on TV there. There you go. It'd be like the easiest editing job ever. Like, and that's why people really liked Trump, because he like stood up to people. But he was a monster, stood up to the wrong people. But
honestly, I think that Warren is probably looking for a 2020 election.
She is. I can tell by her tweets.
Yeah. I can tell by her tweets, and I can tell by how much like she's really railing against Trump already. Like,
yeah,
he put up his cabinet nominations, and she's just like, okay, this is bullshit. So she's going in hard right now.
Her and Bernie were already ready to fight Hillary, so they're like, all right, new plan, let's fight Trump.
Hillary's irrelevant now. We can drop her from our mind. Focus on the big guy right here. Focus on spray tan.
I think she could beat Trump pretty easily, and it's like people don't realize, like, California was a red state, or went red. Like, the states change a lot. That's why, like, we complain about the Electoral College is kind of useless, because they assume that these states are always going to be the same way. It's like there could be a period where the Democrats are winning Wyoming, like no time soon, I don't think, but it's considered like the reddest state, that in Utah. But there could be a period like that's why I mentioned like Obama is like the first Democrat ever to get elected president without winning the Deep South, because like that used to be the Democrats' base, the South. Like they used to have to win at least something in the South. That's why like Jimmy Carter was from the South. That's why Bill Clinton was from the South, because they're like, we need to win something in the South. And like now they just have the coasts, and the coasts are like have horrible liberal white people who I live with, and most of them care about their stock portfolio more than anything else. So it's like they don't care about the rest of the country.
Yeah, have you heard about one of the potential secretaries of education that Trump's floating around?
It's Ben Carson. I heard Ben Carson was in the running.
Ben Carson dropped out. He said, I'm not experienced enough to do this. So he's not.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Which everyone's like, really? You say that now of all times? Why did you run for president? It's amazing that he said that shit. That is just, oh my God. Ben Carson, do you want to be Secretary of Education? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. No, I'm out of here.
I just want to be president.
Yeah. But another one of the names that was floating around for Secretary of Education is a woman named Michelle Rhee, or Ray. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Rhee. And I am, if she ends up being Secretary of Education, because basically she was Chancellor of Education down in Washington D.C. back from like, what was it, 2008 to 2011, I think, something like that. And there was a lot of, there's some good shit about her, and then there's some like scary shit about her. Like for instance, she is a registered Democrat who supports the Common Core, right? And that's something that like we just need to get over that and just be okay with it because it's happening. But one of the things that like is kind of like fucked up is that she's very anti-teachers union, and she has been basically quoted as saying, if you don't produce results, I don't care if you've been working for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, you're fucking done. Not fucking done, but you won't be working here much longer. Is basically what she said. She doesn't give a shit about tenure. She doesn't give a shit about seniority. She actually targets people who have seniority, and basically it's just like, you're too comfortable with your job, so you're not helping the students, so you're fired. Is basically what she would do. When she was Chancellor of Education, she did a lot of like manipulative shit behind the scenes to basically give herself the power to fire principals, which is not something that people of her position were able to do before then. And she was very, very like authoritarian about her power too, because like the city council, I think during her second to last year, told her, because she had like a budget problem, she hired like 900 new teachers, and she was like super over budget. And so what the city councils did is they said, okay, so what we're going to tell you to do is we want you to cut back on summer schools. We don't want you firing teachers. There's been too much firing going on. So cut back on summer school. That'll help out the budget. And she basically went, fuck that, and just fired 200 teachers. Like that's she gave no fucks. And they weren't even teachers she just hired. She didn't fire the teachers that like were brand new, that she's just like, I'm sorry, I hired too many people. We can't give you.
And this is what's funny is this is a Democrat, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's like there are people in the Democratic Party who are like that. Like, here's the thing. Obama had a super majority and could not get a public option and could not get a stimulus with infrastructure spending. Instead, he had to settle for one with 2/3 tax cuts. Does that not make you realize how fucked we are? Like,
when it comes to the Democrats, Jesus.
Yeah. That's what the Democrats completely in charge. That's what happened.
Completely in charge of everything, couldn't do basically anything that they wanted to fucking do.
That's why when people say, oh, Obama wanted to do things, but he was obstructed, it's like, when he had his whole party in charge, nothing really like, I sat there with like begging for this to like and praying, which I don't believe in God, which is weird, but praying that this horrible right-wing healthcare plan that I rejected when Hillary Clinton suggested it in the primary would get passed through Congress so that electing Obama wouldn't be a total waste. And like, I sat there and like, I realized like, if anything, what this has taught me is like, people are just constantly like, oh, you need to like temper your expectations. Like, I'm like, fuck, they don't want to do shit. Like, Obama loved having the Republicans to blame shit on when they had control, because like, he never tried to like pin anything on them. Like, the Supreme Court shit is beyond belief. Like, he would tweet every once in a while, serves the hearing. That was it. Like, it was just beyond belief. And like, nobody fought for Merrick Garland because we were all secretly like, well, Trump could get elected. Like, that's gonna happen. But Hillary will probably choose someone better. And then none of us fought because Obama's an idiot. And
oh my God, I'm so like, I've been long disillusioned when it comes to the Democratic Party. And I seriously believe that there needs to be like big time reform when it comes to how they approach things and what they focus on. I'm going to say this. I'm not one of these people who are just like, what the Democratic Party needs to do is stop giving a shit about minorities, which has been floated around. I don't know how this became an idea.
Here's the thing, like, that became the thing with, in the 70s, Democrats became really corporatist and they started betraying unions. But they kept like social agenda, like abortions and supposedly helping minorities, which the Clinton years are like supposedly, like Bill Clinton was supposedly, you know, people would say things like, Bill Clinton is really the first black president, which what? but like, people would say stuff like that. And like, those years were horrible. Like, he gutted welfare, which like disproportionately affects people of color because they live in poverty more than white people do. And he apparently, bringing that up is racist to some Democrats, by the way. And then like did all the private prison shit. it's like you have to do that stuff and help white people. It's like you have to do both those things. And like a lot of those policies, like the people who drive me most insane are like the gay and lesbian neoliberals. They drive me up the fucking wall because they act like poor. They would not fucking help a poor person. Like they could be like on the street starving to death and would walk past them. But God forbid, something that they don't like happens anywhere in the country and they freak the fuck out. It's like, yeah, like you're just like a conservative who only cares about themselves, except you're gay. So you care about gay issues, but you don't fucking give a shit about anyone else. So I know a few people like that. Is what I'm saying.
I don't doubt it. I don't know anybody who specifically like personally like that, but I've experienced that online without too much of it. Actually, I do actually know somebody like that, but he's not a neoliberal gay guy. He's just like super conservative.
Yeah, I know.
And he literally said on Facebook, like I'm not over exaggerating in the slightest. After Trump won, he basically quoted somebody who was like talking to him, and the quote was something along the lines of, "I can't believe you're supporting Trump. Don't you know that he doesn't support your relationship with the guy you're with?" And then he just went off and was like, "First off, I'm not a part of the LGBTQ community. Just because I'm gay doesn't mean I'm anything like a trans fag." That's something he fucking said, and I'm like, what are you fucking talking about right now? He
doesn't know how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to like do what Milo does and like be like crazy racist and right wing, and then whenever anybody calls you on it, go, well, as a gay man, and then give like some nonsensical explanation about why what you just said was not horrible because you're gay. That's like how you're supposed to do it. Like, so like he needs to learn from Milo. That's how he does it. So I'm like surprised Milo Yiannopoulos. Like I'm just shocked that he can appear on like these news shows and just say these things, because like he literally contradicts himself like within the same sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And like I saw him once on was it CNN? On CNN, and literally everyone in the room is like, how does that make any sense?
He just said the most crazy shit possible. It's just to render everybody speechless. Like, and he's
explaining why he supported Trump, and it was just like, and like explain how Trump is good for gay people. It was like, it was beyond hilarious. Like there's people. The problem is people are just selfish in general, and they won't realize that we're all selfish to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And like you need to realize that, because like I'm not going to vote some way that would totally screw me over to protect somebody else, but I will consider other people's problems when voting. And if we have things in common, like of course I'm going to be enthusiastic about those things. And like demonizing people because they vote a certain way, because voting is complicated, especially when you're voting for the president, because no one likes the whole package ever. Like no one likes the whole package ever. It's like I didn't like Obama's drone strikes and like a lot of his actions in his first term, but I still voted for him in his second term. Just like I was willing to vote for Hillary, I just like Hillary convinced me not to. Like so I mean, like I made a video where I was like, that was my healing video. And I was just like, I got to make this video so people realize that despite the fact that I just got called sexist and racist for months, that I'm going to vote for Hillary, and they should too. Because everyone was mad. It's like, maybe it will convince a few people. Maybe I'll, mend some fences. And I said, I was either 90 or 95% sure that I would vote for Hillary. But the only reason I even had any doubt was because I lived in Washington, which is really blue. And I may make another decision. And then by the end of it, I was just like, there is no way Like, there was this tug in my mind though, even after I filled out the little, because we vote by mail in Washington. They just send you it in the mail. You can't even go to a polling place in my county. There's no such thing. So I just filled out the little bubble for Jill Stein really early, and then even there's still this like tug, like Hillary Clinton's going to be the first woman president, and you're not going to vote for her. And now I can say I voted for someone else and kept the first woman, the potential first woman president for being president, because that's apparently what CNN believes and MSNBC believes. So I should just tell people I voted for Trump because that's what Obama told me. Like, so not really, not in the most technical sense, but I really did. So it didn't affect anything.
I actually had a friend who lives in Chicago, and when he saw my video for where I said I was probably going to vote for Stein, he's like, I just kind of want to take you and like put you in a hole until after the election just so you can't. I'm like, why? He's like, because I'm really worried.
Yeah, because that wouldn't stop anything though. Then you wouldn't vote at all, and it's exactly
it still would have been the exact same thing.
Well, the one video I responded to, I don't know if you've seen any of the videos on my political channel, but the one video I responded to, what's his name? Anubis? Is that how you pronounce it? The Egyptian god? Anubis? Is that how you pronounce it?
I couldn't tell you.
But he's named after an Egyptian god. But anyway, I responded to him because he literally says that you shouldn't vote third party, and then at the end of his video he says, but that's better than staying home. And it's like, well, either voting for third party does something or it doesn't. It's either equivalent to staying home or it's worth doing. It's like this is not a false dichotomy. This is a genuine dichotomy. And like that drove me crazy. And I responded to other things in that video. One of the things I brought up, I think like kind of rubbed people the wrong way, as I said, there would literally be no difference if Al Gore won the presidency in 2000 than if George Bush did. And like, I'm probably exaggerating, but hear me out. If Gore becomes president in 2000, does 9/11 still happen? Do you believe it still happened or not? Or would still happen? In another reality, there's multiverses. We know this. So another reality it did. Yeah. But in some reality, 9/11 didn't happen, and in others it did. But no. Let's just like
happened. But Al Qaeda currently rules the United States.
Yeah. But like, do you believe that everything else is the same, and we just that one thing that Gore's president instead of Bush, which of course would change a lot, but a lot of actions and things like that. But then 9/11 doesn't happen because in my reading, and if anybody has any information that would contradict this, like I'm no expert or anything, but it was because different intelligence agencies had information, like the NSA, CIA, and FBI had information, but none of them had the whole thing, and they didn't share information with each other. And I don't think having Al Gore as president would have fixed that, unless he just had the bright idea before 9/11 to like decide to reform that for no reason. And like 9/11 was kind of a long shot thing anyway. It's kind of amazing that they pulled it off when you think of all the things that could have gone wrong and like how some stuff did go wrong still. But when you think about like how they pulled it off, with like, it's kind of amazing that it was pulled off at all, even with security not like how it is now. So that happened, but even if it happened and it wasn't as bad, like something else happened and it ended up, they didn't end up crashing into the World Trade Center. Let's say they like ended up crashing, like the one plane that ended up crashing in because they fought back and all that. Like even if like a million things, so like a major terrorist attack still happens, Al Gore's president. what do the Republicans do immediately? They try to pressure him to like do the kind of stuff Bush did. And do you think Al Gore would stand up to that? He'd just be like, oh no, I'm not going to do any of that. And they may have even been able to convince him to invade Iraq. Really? Like, I don't think that would necessarily be the case, but like they might have been able to convince him of that. But one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to run John McCain against him in 2004 and beat him because every voter thinks that the Republicans are the best at national security and the Democrats are weak on it, which there's polling to show us this, or he gets reelected and then he gets to be president long enough for the economy to crash because Bill Clinton repealed Glass-Steagall. That was not something that the Republicans did. It was something Bill Clinton did. So either way, we end up with Republicans taking the presidency back 4 years anyway, and then John McCain's president, and who knows what he would do. Or like we end up with a Democrat president when there's an economic crash, which means we get a Republican president to fix it, which would be a nightmare. And it's like, oh, that's why we should not have the Electoral College, because like none of this, like it doesn't seem like that would be good at all. Like there's no upside to Al Gore being president, except that perhaps you would get some Supreme Court seats you didn't get in this reality.
Sorry, my attention's kind of split. We got somebody in the chat right now who is doing the whole, you voted for Stein, you're the kind of liberal I hate. And he's basically being like, you voted for Stein, she had no chance of winning, that's throwing your vote away, and that's the fact. And it's like, well, that's not how we see it. That's not. No.
Did you tell him that when you vote in a way other than your state, they literally throw it in the garbage?
Oh yeah. If you don't vote the way your state wanted you to, they literally throw your they make your vote into paper if it's not paper already, crumble it up, and then throw it in a waste bin, and they make sure they toss it like a basketball player. That's what they do.
If you live in a blue state, you should always vote Democrat, and if you live in a red state, you should always vote Republican, because otherwise your vote gets thrown away.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So why wouldn't you do that? Why would you vote for a Democrat in Utah? They throw your vote away. That makes no difference. So why would you vote for them? That's why I say, like, if I lived in a red state, which I never would, I literally moved to a blue state because I couldn't stay in Ohio.
I now live in a red state. Imagine how I feel.
Yeah, but I mean a deep red state, like fucking Wyoming or Utah. Like, I would never live in a state where there's no chance the Democrats can ever win anything, because it's bad enough when the Democrats are in charge. Like, I don't want Republicans to be in charge. So, like, I would never, ever vote for the Democrat presidential candidate. I would just vote third party all the time, because what's the point? Like, when you vote third party, at least there's a chance that enough people will vote for that party to get it 5%. So, like, why vote for the president? Then that's why I think people object to the Electoral College. They're really worried about their power of their vote. But like, there's other shit on the ballot. That's what like really drives me crazy. Like Colin Kaepernick saying he didn't go and vote, and then my friend who's like, I don't vote because of the Electoral College. It's like, there's other shit on the ballot. So, if you don't go, you don't get a vote on that shit either. So, and like Jimmy Dore says that too. I wouldn't have voted if I hadn't voted for Jill Stein. It's like, just leave it fucking blank and vote for the other stuff, moron. Like the stuff that will probably more directly affect you. So, pretty much everything I voted for came out the way I voted, except the carbon tax that was here. I actually voted for it because like there was some controversy because they thought that it wasn't actually cost neutral, but I was like, that's like so nebulous and like I don't know. But then I found out like it actually has some bad effects on unions and stuff like that. And then after I'd already voted for it, I was like, I wish I hadn't voted for that. But it didn't pass. So so that was good. But a lot of people were worried that it would have bad effects on the country because people would use that as the template for carbon taxes going forward. And it had a lot of problems with it. So, but I just wanted a carbon tax initially, and I didn't bother to properly research it. And then like I'm probably in the top 1% of voters in terms of being informed and intelligent, and I still voted for something that I didn't really want.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why I'm not for more democracy.
Okay. He's continuing on. He's saying we only had 2 choices, and I'm like, well, technically, no, we didn't, because I had 4 people on my ballot as far as the president was concerned. Oh, actually, I had 5, but I can't remember who the other. The one guy was for the Constitution Party, which I don't know shit about.
That's Daryl Castle.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't even know who you are, so whatever. But as I understand, the Constitution Party is usually like crazy.
Yeah, they're like crazy social conservatives.
Yeah.
So they should call themselves the "We Never Read the Constitution Party."
But yeah, Infinity and Zero, like, is the guy's name. Just so you're aware, when you tell me that I'm throwing my vote away because I voted for someone who couldn't be president, what you're doing is you're assuming the motivation behind my vote. The motivation behind my vote was not to elect Jill Stein as president. It was to present. It was to cause pressure. It was to allow for the possibility, anyway, of her getting maybe 5% of the vote on a national scale, so that she could receive some federal funding next time, or at the very least, the Green Party could. It was also because I liked her better than I liked Hillary or Trump, and I supported her more than I supported those 2. These are all very legitimate reasons to vote for a candidate. And I'm going to say this: the only way in which you can throw a vote away is if you vote in complete and total ignorance of what you're voting for. That's my idea of what a vote is, of what a thrown away vote is. I'll say this: even if you don't vote, but your reasoning for not voting is literally everyone on the ballot stands for everything that I'm against, I don't know how that would happen, because that doesn't seem like a thing that could actually occur. But but you could not vote with that reasoning if it was valid, and I would support that. I would be okay with that. So yeah, no, her platform wasn't like kooky. I mean, there was some shit that she said that was kind of unrealistic. I can accept that, and there were like some legitimate issues to have with Jill Stein, but I consider none of those issues even coming close to the issues I had with either Hillary or Trump. Granted, if Hillary and Trump were actually my only 2 options, I'd probably go for Hillary, but they weren't. That's factually the case. I factually had 5 people on my ballot that I could choose as far as the president is concerned. And Hillary and Trump were the people I was the least likely to vote for. So that's just how it is.
If you had ranked choice voting for the president, I think I told you about this too. Like, it would not be a race between Hillary and Trump. It would be Gary Johnson and Hillary, because Hillary would probably get more first choices than anyone, would be my guess. And there would be fewer first choices for Trump because people know they could put Trump second, and discussed it with him, but wanted to stop Hillary. But Gary Johnson would probably be overwhelmingly the second choice. Like, he might get 75% of like the second choice if you assume that half of Hillary voters who are like disgusted with socialism or don't want their taxes to be higher would vote for Gary Johnson as second, assuming they don't leave that blank, because that's an option too. Then you get like that, and then probably all of Trump voters would pick him second, because they were not going to pick Hillary second, and they're not going to pick Jill Stein. Yeah. So I mean, they might pick like the Constitution Party.
Obviously, he was the one that was closest. He was a spoiler candidate for Trump, then slightly anyway.
I had 2 communists on my ballot. I had the Socialist Workers Party and another socialist party.
Oh, he gave me an interesting thought experiment. If you could change your vote now and that would make Hillary the president, would you do it? My response to that was, if I had a magical button that could give everyone ice cream and pet unicorns, yes. It's a pointless question because there's no.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't demonstrate a point. Like basically, if you're. Okay.
If you had that ability, though, his thought experiment is horrible because if you had that ability, you'd pick Jill Stein.
Yeah. If I had the ability to just make one vote and that person is president, it would probably be Jill Stein. So, very bad thought experiment. Makes no sense.
And I'm not crazy about Jill Stein being president either because she doesn't have that much experience in politics. But, like, for what we have, like, I would pick Jill Stein, just hope she surrounds herself with people who are, like, super smart.
Like, I'm not saying
that's what I would do.
Jill Stein is the perfect candidate that, like, we should have all voted for. Like, no. But, like, she's better than Trump and Hillary is all I'm fucking saying. And if you disagree with that, fine. I don't refuse to answer the question, Infinity and Zero, because the question is silly. I'm telling you, yes, I probably would if that was my only option, but it's not. And if I had that power, I'd just put Jill Stein in power, and it's about as realistic as me having a magical button that could give everybody candy, ice cream, and unicorn pets. That's as realistic as that question is. So it's a pointless question. It's a question that assumes power or a reality that will never exist. So there's no point to it.
I have a question. If you could only pick Trump or Hillary, but you knew Trump would win in 2020, would you put Hillary there or would you put Trump there?
Fuck. That's a good one.
Because that's my theory about how this would have played if Hillary had won. Trump would have just come back in 2020 and won. Like that's
is he gonna be winning in 2020 regardless of my vote?
Like if you put him there now, then the chances of him being there are probably less for 2 terms because probably someone like Elizabeth Warren would come and annihilate him. But you'd have no guarantees of it.
That is difficult. That is difficult. I guess damn. I'm gonna go with Trump on that one.
You go with him now?
With the caveat that I know that he would more likely lose in 2020.
Yeah, like I would go with that too. That's why I'm not that freaked out about it because I would rather have him win now than win later. So, despite the fact the only drawback is like the Supreme Court, like if those 3 justices that are over 75 retire or die in his first term, we are fucked. It's like we are fucked beyond being fucked. Like there's no way that we will get anything done in this country because he will put the most conservative fucking justices and like everything's in jeopardy if he does. Roe v. Wade, fucking same-sex marriage, like everything. Like stop and frisk for Christ's sakes. They may decide to reverse that. So yeah. I think that unlikely though, because I don't remember anyone ever appointing 3 justices in 1 term. Not that it's never happened because I'd have to go back and look at the whole history. But he's already getting a free one because Obama gave it to him. So, and it's not obstruction, like part of it, but Obama doesn't fight back with the obstruction. Like I'd give Obama a pass that he was obstructed if he fought and he lost. Then you get a pass. Not if he takes a dive, which he does all the time. So I said to somebody like last night on Facebook that I believe Obama would be a complete failure now because he did not preserve his own legacy. Like the only consider him a success, even though with all the disappointment, is if he got like at least some stuff done and then preserved his own legacy. But he didn't. He instead did everything he could to try to push Hillary Clinton because that's the deal he made with her. And now we have a crazy person in the White House. So, and the Garage Autonomous, if you made it this far in the video, you should subscribe to the Garage Autonomous. He had the perfect metaphor for Trump and why he's not Hitler. He said, he said, politics is like a restaurant. The politicians are the servers. People like Trump are the diners. Trump just got fed up fast enough and decided to go into the kitchen. was like, that is the perfect metaphor for what has happened. It's like
what's his name again?
The Garage Autonomous.
The Garage Autonomous.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, by the way, is there like a particular YouTube channel of yours that you would want to like direct people to from this video? Like your
I have the worst person on the internet, which mostly has the movie videos. I have Broken Democracy, which is the political videos, but I don't know if I'm going to use any of them after this. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to be on YouTube ever again. So,
well, you know what? I'm putting them up anyway, just because I you know, you're my buddy, as far as I'm concerned. And
all the political videos are probably boring now because they assume that Hillary is going to win. So, and that's funny. Like in the documentary The 13th, when you watch that, they assume Hillary's going to win too. So they go after Trump and they go after Hillary and they go after him equally, but they assume Hillary's going to win. Which is a bad assumption, apparently.
Apparently it is. Yep.
Yeah. So
okay. So I'm putting both of those in there, and you said Garage Autonomous.
Yeah. Yeah. I've recommended him to a lot of people. Bewildered Ape recommended him to me. He is probably, if not one of, the most intelligent person on YouTube to talk about things like protest and how you implement social change through protest. So very interesting videos to watch.
Channels and I misspelled. I typoed movie. I suck. Okay, and these recommended channel for you all to check out. Bam. So those are going to be added in there. Christiosity wanted to let you know that Peter Boghossian got back to her. And apparently she's saying that it was bullshit, whatever that is referring to.
Yeah, I'm not sure what specifically. I found like most of what he said to be bullshit, but I don't know if she means something I said about him was bullshit, or
she's probably referring to something that he said.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what you guys are referring to. I just know that Peter says.
Well, like the thing was, like I said, like perhaps you're being, you're interpreting him ungenerously because I'm an advocate for interpreting people generously on the internet, and after doing more research, like, nope, she's probably completely right about how she's interpreting him. So, like, I like agree with her original interpretation, even though I thought like.
It does seem absurd the way that she originally portrayed what he was saying, but it does seem to be fairly accurate as to what he was actually saying. So
yeah, if you go and you look at the actual background on him, and apparently like he has I don't want to buy his book and I can't find it in any libraries. So like we have a great library system in Seattle, but they don't have it, so I don't want to actually purchase it and give him money. So
yeah.
But yeah, like he's just a standard. I don't know how any academic could buy this new atheist crap. Like even Dennett is super smart, and I'm just like, the fact that he buys this new atheist crap just like totally in it. But like actually, I was reading a book on neuroscience that referenced Dennett. It was like philosophy of neuroscience, and they were arguing against Dennett and Searle, and I think chiefly them, but like people who have functionalist type leanings like they do. And I was reading it, and when I was doing a review of it, I was like, I'm going to review it as I read it and just like go through and unpack all the arguments. And and when I got to Dennett's rebuttal, I was like, oh my God, their arguments I was giving them way too much credit. Because Dennett just destroys their arguments like immediately. So I just went back and like rewrote everything. And was like, yeah, I was giving them way too much credit in these arguments because I didn't quite understand what they were saying. But Dennett pretty much like I didn't need to read the Searle rebuttal. So
I've always enjoyed Dennett's work. I think he is a very intelligent person, and the fact that he is sort of reaching the end of his lifeline is something that I find to be very disconcerting. I'm not happy that it's only at this point it's only a matter of time before we lose him, and I'm very nervous about that because he's basically the only like new atheist, if we want to say shit like that, that had like
hasn't said awful things.
Basically, yeah.
Like occasionally he would say stuff that I just think is silly. Like he would say when he talks about arguing with religious people, he goes, I try to be as polite as possible, but there's no polite way to say that you're wasting your life. And then I just think that there's too many assumptions about what wasting your life, because I'm like, if you spend every Sunday building ships, like model ships, and that's what you enjoy, can you say you're wasting your life? If you go to church and you enjoy it, but not only that, you participate in charity through church.
Yeah.
You're not wasting your life, you're helping other people.
It does presume that the truth of the religion is the only thing that makes the religion worthwhile.
Yeah, that's the assumption all new atheists make. And like I thought about converting to Christianity because typically like all my political views kind of line up to with Jesus, and just say I'm a Christian, even though I don't believe in any of the supernatural stuff, just to troll people. like a Brett Keane type thing, only I would be like very like socialist.
Yeah.
Instead.
You piss off Christians and atheists. It would be great.
I don't have the time, so it would be fun. Like Brett Keane went all in, like endorsing Trump. I was surprised.
I'm not at all surprised.
Well, he does like all kinds of crazy stuff, but like I thought like he's kind of getting a little stale for me. But I wasn't like really familiar with everything he's pulled on YouTube. So like he was more, once I realized it was a character and it was on up like a mirror of his one that he deleted, and he's basically like, I'm doing a character. And like he did a video, and I even told like Bewildered Ape and Jenny McDermott about it. I was like, yeah, like you probably didn't see this because he deleted it like a couple days later. It's like he just kind of lays it out there. He's like, yeah, I'm just doing a character, it's fun. It's like, and he like explains the whole thing, and then he deleted it a few days later. He's like some of you were in on this already, but some of you may not have figured it out. It's a great video. And I just mirrored it. It was like that's what only thing YouTube is good for. It's like not for sharing information really, because it's just there's no authority. There's no like what used to piss me off is like I used to think of it as if, I'm teaching you about something and you don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I just want you to engage with it. And that's too much to ask. So,
the funny thing is, I thought where you were going with that is that YouTube is great for just like little drama things, and to be fair, it is great for that if that's what you're looking for. And it reminded me of a Netflix special that I saw recently. I forget what the comedian's name was. I can fucking oh my god, why am I blanking on him? Because I've listened to him a bunch. But basically, at the end, near the end of his special, he's like, I couldn't possibly go back into having like a day job, and I don't miss it at all. There's one thing that I do miss about having a day job, and that's spreading baseless rumors about everybody that I work with, because it's the only fun thing about it. And he's like, the best thing about it is that nobody fact checks it whenever you try to spread rumors about anyone. You can say whatever you want, and people will go, yeah, that came out of your face, I believe it, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, like the thing about like I have like distance from like the whole drama with me, and like the problem was I cared, and like Bewildered Ape and I feuded obviously, and we talked about it, and I was just like that was the thing that people didn't realize. It's like I really thought we were doing something important, and I had to like divorce myself from that idea. It's like, no, these people don't really care. It's just tribalism and like backstabbing and stuff. Like, they really don't care. And like people like Captain Andy and stuff like that, they're just really doing kind of the stuff that almost the MRAs accuse them of, or like the accuse them of, like they really are. And it's not really about do anything. If you want to do something, like be active in your community, like go out and protest for political causes. Don't like sit on YouTube and like be a slacktivist, if you can even call it that, because it's not even that. And it is like one of my former professors used the term virtue signaling, like when he was talking about like people politically, like they want to like say that they're better than everyone else. It's like it's a real intellectual term.
Yeah, it's the way that it was originally intended to mean.
And like, but it cracked me up when he used it, and I thought about explaining how they use it online, but I just let it go. But we were talking on Facebook about politics and stuff, and he used the term virtue signaling, and now it's ruined for me. The term is ruined for me, but he used it in a completely serious way and valid way. But like that's what I felt like everyone was doing, and like what the attacks on me were they're trying to take my moral authority away, which why I even cared about that, as like assuming I even had it. So like that's what people try to do is it's just like that's the currency of YouTube in terms of like the social justice type people, is your currency is like your moral purity. And they were trying to take that currency away from me. And that's why I freaked out, because I didn't realize I did not understand that consciously, but unconsciously I understood it. So when I understood what they were trying to do, I just freaked out, and I just freaked out in like a totally illogical, weird way. So it was kind of interesting. It made me like think about communities like this and like online interactions, and affected like how I write too in terms of that. But I could never come back to this again, because I could never commit to it. Yes. Mm. Would you like to be in the video, or would you like to be on the internet? Okay. Do you know Donald Trump has said he's going to destroy you? He said he was going to destroy ISIS. This is ISIS.
Hi. Hi.
So Donald Trump said he was going to destroy you. Don't worry, he's all talk.
You want to? Don't worry about
it. No, he means the organization ISIS. So, yeah. So don't worry.
She had like a scared look on her face there for a second.
Yeah.
You're actually legitimately scared.
Yeah, you don't want to actually. Donald Trump is scary, so you don't want to. You don't want Donald Trump coming after you. But when the election happened, like she like asked me like who had won, and like could not believe it. Like everyone had been telling her Hillary was going to win. So she's like,
well, when you hear it a bunch and it doesn't happen, it can be.
Yeah, well, I told her Trump won, and she goes, "What about Hillary?" Like,
well, she's basically
she's gone.
Never happened.
Hillary just like was raptured in the middle of the election.
She's gone off to heaven. We'll never see her again.
So I think that's the first time she learned that adults don't know what they're talking about. Is that the first time? Yeah, right. Adults don't.
Yeah, it's a good lesson.
Yeah,
adults can be just as stupid as any kid. Just bear that in mind for the rest of your life. All right. Well, we've been going at it for about 3 hours.
Yeah, I think like if anyone made it to the end of this, I think we should stop it.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else to talk about. I will say like what the metaphor of the primary was. I'll tell you what the metaphor for the primary was with Bernie and Hillary, because you're talking about how we should have just attacked Hillary, or Bernie should have. Somebody came up to me on the street, someone much bigger than me, and they had a knife, and they were like, "I'm going to gouge your eye out," which is what Hillary being the nominee is. But if you fight me, something much worse is going to happen. Like, I'm just want to gouge your eye out. If you fight me, I might kill you or whatever. And like, that's like the threat of Trump. And like, that's just how I felt the whole time. And now it's over. Like, it's better even with Trump having won than going through that again. Because I don't know if you ever saw like the Young Turks. I saw like Jimmy Dore and Wesley Clark Jr. were like, and they just start screaming. Well, Wesley Clark Jr. started screaming out because Jimmy Dore was like kind of like going, well, Trump's just a buffoon. Don't worry. Like, even if he wins, it's no big deal. And Wesley Clark just goes, what do you think like mass murderers are? They kill people because they're incompetent. Yeah. And like he just like starts screaming, and then Jimmy Dore's like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but this is hard. And like it just like
I'm trying to mentally cope with this situation. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's like it's difficult to like deal with this, especially like if you just know, because it's not that I just did not like Hillary. Because in 2008, I even said, like, I was trying to stop Hillary from getting the nomination in 2008, and somebody asked me if I voted in the primary, and I said, yes. And she goes, who did you vote for? And I go, Obama. And I said, because I will do whatever it takes to keep Hillary Clinton from becoming president. And I said this to her, and she just started cracking up that I said that, because even then people, like, a lot of people hate it, like young people did. This girl was like 24 at the time, so, and early 30s now. So
is that meltdown like still on the Young Turks' channel, by the way?
What?
Is that meltdown still on their channel, by the way?
It was the debate, like I believe the first debate analysis in the middle of that. Okay. So you'd have to watch the whole thing to find it, but like it was pretty amazing.
I kind of like
it. Showed you like what people were going through, like emotionally. People who like both hate Hillary and Trump, like so, which is most of us, really, like most of America. We hated them both. They were the two most hated politicians in the history of the country, and the more hated one won.
It goes against all reason and logic. It makes literally no sense on the face of it.
But that's because of the Electoral College.
Yeah.
If we get rid of that, it'll never happen again.
Yeah, it'll never happen again, and it's only because of the Electoral College, and that's because the Electoral College is fundamentally unfair, and we should go back to mob rule. Is what we should do. That's what we need to do.
Exactly. We should have the federal government that arbitrates disputes between the states decided by popular vote, which would immediately give the larger states more clout in all disputes. So
all this makes complete sense. I don't disagree.
Anyway, we should end it.
Yeah.
Let's
all
end
right.
it.
See you guys. I'll see you guys next week, probably with Christiosity or Varmint Coyote or whoever else wants to be doing these things. I've got a lot of people lined up. A bunch of people want to be doing this. So see you guys either next Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Not entirely certain. But yeah, have a good night, everybody.